PodAskew Podcast is a proud member of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network.
Welcome everybody to the PodAskew Podcast. I am CJ, and with me, as always, is my hetero life mate Rico. What's up, man?
Do you want a whole laundry list of what's fucked up, or do you
No,
want to move
dude.
on to something happy?
With the week that, what the fuck? It's all I can say about this week, and it's not even worth getting into. I'm sure it'll come up over the course of the conversation because it very much affects our guest. So I'm sure it'll be a coming up topic at some point. But holy fuck! Anyway, that said, we do have a guest, and you know how much I hate making our guest wait. So I would like to introduce him immediately. We have the director. Safe word. Yes? No? Maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Director of Chasing Amy, a documentary about the movie Chasing Amy and more. And he's Sav Rodgers, our guest. We'll get into that with us. So, Sav, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, guys. It's an honor to be here. Y'all have been super nice to me since the TED Talk came out, so it's nice to be able to chat with you at length now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's certainly a topic I want to get to. So, because I'm just blindly curious about how you get to be the subject of a TED Talk. Like, even if it is a 7-minute TED Talk, that's still mind-boggling to me in the best possible way that you got to go up there and do that, you know? So.
Yeah, what's Ted like in real life? How did you have to meet him? And
So, TED stands for Technology, Entertainment and Design.
Yeah.
And the guy that runs it his name is Chris, and I got to meet him once, and he was nice to me in the elevator. But it's kind of still a mystery to me how you get selected for a TED Talk. Basically, I saw this ad on Facebook for this initiative called Adobe Project 1324. And that no longer exists anymore, by the way. That's how, fast this whole process went, right?
Jesus.
And it was for artists 18 to 24 to submit to this open call that TED had in partnership with Adobe to go participate in the TED residency. And essentially what you would do is you would have worked on a project, and then you would have given a TED Talk. And it was a 3-month program, and they basically paid your way. And I saw it, and I was like, oh, that's cool. TED has a residency. And I kept scrolling. But then I saw it again, and I was like, wow, okay, maybe I should actually apply to this. And we were just in the beginning of wanting to make Chasing Amy. And I was like, okay, well, a TED Talk could be valuable. It could be a valuable, tool to, show that I know how to talk about things. That's nice. And I just applied on the day of the deadline. I made a 1-minute cell phone video saying who I was, and I gave a very vague pitch saying I'd talk about LGBTQ representation in film and TV and the importance of that. And to my surprise, a month later, I got an email saying I was a finalist. And then I was like, oh, this is real. This is not just, an ad I saw. This is a real thing. These are emails from TED.com. Amazing. And I was the last person they scheduled for an interview. And so I was the very last person they talked to. And according to them, they had already gone with the person that they wanted. But I came in and we were just talking about, movies. And I said I was a filmmaker. They said they called me because they liked my reel. And they said, hey, we really like you, but your pitch is super vague. If you had to give a TED Talk tomorrow, what would it be about? And I was like, well, I've got this documentary I want to make about the movie Chasing Amy. And I basically told them my story, which for your listeners who don't know, I saw Chasing Amy at the age of 12, and it totally revolutionized my life in the best of ways.
Bad parenting, though, I would say. I just have to put that out there. No, I'm kidding. But
my mom is constantly upset that this is what I'm quote known for, just because she's like, you're putting my bad parenting on display. But honestly, like, I would let my kids watch Chasing Amy at 12. That's a very influential age. I think they need to be able to learn how to talk about big topics anyway. I just don't think she remembered how crass it was. She didn't remember why it was rated R. So I pitched them my Chasing Amy documentary, where I just wanted to talk about the cultural impact of Chasing Amy as an LGBTQ film, and I told them what it did for me and how it basically saved my life as a depressed, closeted, queer, trans kid living in Kansas and not really seeing any other LGBTQ films, not knowing that many LGBTQ people, and knowing that it was considered bad to be queer, trans where I was. So this movie was a lifeline for me. And so I told them all about that, and they were like, we have never heard a pitch so specific. We really like it. We will let you know in the next 2 weeks. And then 3 days later, I found out I got it. And it totally changed my life. I went to New York. Adobe paid for me to go to New York, and I worked on Chasing Amy for 3 months at TED HQ, and gave a TED talk at the last in the last 2 weeks of it. And then the week after, I shot on the very last day of the TED residency, I shot the first day of Chasing Amy in the TED studio. And then we went to New Jersey the next day and shot at all the Chasing Amy locations that Kevin shot at. So that was a whirlwind experience, and they basically just helped me hone the talk into something that was deeply personal. And it was supposed to be 6 minutes and went on for 8 minutes, and I think they were fine with that. Yeah. But it was probably the most revolutionary time of my whole life, because up to that point I had only lived in Kansas and I had never had a life experience that big. And so fundamentally one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
What I like about it is not only was it was insanely profoundly educational, you were really fucking funny too.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's weird because I'm talking about, being a 12-year-old who does not want to live anymore, and I'm finding ways to insert jokes to make the audience feel better. And that was always the intention, was to show my personality in the way that I try to talk to people and engage with people and make people laugh. Mm-hmm. And I think it's my personality and the jokes that do land, which I don't think any of them didn't land, but the jokes in there that really make it palatable, because it's really serious stuff to talk about a child's wanting to die. But if you can talk about it in a way that reminds people of the humanity and the humor in life, in addition to the pain, I think it becomes a lot easier to digest, I guess.
Of course. Comedy and tragedy go hand in hand. It's more palatable for sure to be able to. I mean, if we didn't have George Carlin talking about having heart attacks and laughing about it, then we wouldn't. Then I mean, still a heart attack and cancer and shit like that's still a tricky thing to talk about. But if you could laugh at it, it helps. So I get your point. My favorite thing actually was the fact that you more or less said, I was a fan of Ben Affleck before he had his comeback, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Batfleck, I liked him pre Daredevil.
That's really funny, because I always think of the notion of a comeback, right? And how it plays to the public versus you're just a person trying to do a job, right? I always think about that, and specifically with Affleck's career, because I was such a fan of him at a young age. For context, for people who don't know, I saw Daredevil at age 8 in the movie theaters. First time I ever knew who Kevin Smith was, by the way, was I was oh, he's the guy from Daredevil, I didn't know he made his own movies.
Oh my God, he's the guy from Daredevil. It's not wrong. It's just, I don't think I've ever heard him referred to that.
I think actually Kevin would probably appreciate that. I'd be people know me from a comic book movie? That's awesome.
Yeah. I think I told him that, and I think he found it funny. The last time that I saw him, when he was walking away, I'm like, oh my God, it's the guy from Catch and Release. And
that's awesome.
Just always just a little something. But yeah, no, I saw Daredevil at age 8, and I was like, wow, this guy Ben Affleck, he's a cool actor, and I would watch Sum of All Fears and Changing Lanes and movies that 9-year-olds don't have any fucking interest in. And it was an interesting experience, all the movies that I was exposed to at a young age. But I don't know. Like, I always think of like the idea of a comeback. It's like, it's just a person trying to do a job. Like, I feel like when somebody becomes famous, they cease to be like a real person to most of the world. And so I always like find it interesting how like publicity plays into that. And like, you know, Ben Affleck, the dude, cannot be so interesting that it necessitates all of these paparazzi pictures to take photos of him 24 hours a day when this dude is just trying to get a coffee. But at the same time, the public wants that for some reason, and I don't understand it, I guess, you know? So it's interesting to think about Affleck's movies and like the idea of like comebacks for him when like he's a dude who just like seems like he's just trying to make each movie better than the last, and that doesn't always work, I guess. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's for and to your point, Sav, that's for any actor or actress. You know what I mean? Like,
or filmmaker,
right?
Like,
right.
You know, the way that I think people talk, you know, a lot about like filmmakers like that too. It's like, hey, if your last thing wasn't as good as your first thing, or the thing you did before that, you're a has-been and you're washed up. And I'm just like, why does that mean that? Why is that the standard that we hold people to? Why does everything have to be a masterpiece? Why can't we just like try new things? And things don't always have to work, but I think we should encourage artists and filmmakers to take risks. And like, I feel like we judge them so harshly on like box office and things that ultimately don't matter to the value of art, but maybe reflect on commerce instead. Anyway, I think about this shit all the time.
No, but you bring up a valid point. I know where I'm about to go is not a conversation Rico wants to have, so I'll probably try to keep it as short as possible. But like Metallica, you know, they're very much defined, if you're a fan, by that Black Album. You know, everything post and pre-Black Album, and to the same point. Like, and to me, as a mega fan, it's all just Metallica. You know, like you said, some things hit, some things don't hit, but that doesn't mean that, you know, they're suddenly just like failures.
Yeah, like I feel the same way. I mean, so for context, my mom and biological father met at a Metallica concert, so I only exist because of that Black Album.
There you go. But all good things come from the Black Album.
Right, exactly. No, but you know, I think about that all the time. It's like, you know, people rag on, you know, artists as they develop and change, and we don't always agree with the direction that people grow in, but it's inevitable that things will change, you know? Like, for example, Kevin Smith movies. Kevin's not the same guy that made Clerks.
No.
He couldn't be. How could he be the same guy? That's totally different life experiences. So the people that go to his movies now expecting something that's exactly a clone of Clerks, it doesn't really track for me. Like, I want to know what Kev now has to say. We've heard what Kevin at, 24 had to say, but let's hear what Kev has to say now. That's just an example. You know what I mean?
But it's a valid example for sure, because you're right. There's a lot of people that feel like the turning point was right around Jersey Girl. You know what I mean? Like, to give a delineation, but, you know. I
think it was actually weed that really changed him. I think and I'm not just trying to make a joke. There is a clear correlation of Kevin Smith pre-weed where and I don't want to say this and get the wrong impression, but like he was definitely more serious, but he was also kind of not as vibrant and happy. He kind of, even when he was delivering jokes to a heckler, there was a kind of like mean-spiritedness to it, but we loved him at the same time because we're all fans of him. And then now, post-weed, just like, hey, you could hate my movie. That's okay. I'm the only one who has to love my movie. Fuck you. But hey, weed, everybody for weed. Like,
that's a great impression, by the way.
Yeah, he does. He does. I mean, well, fuck Rico. You're the one that told him you were the only person that bought fucking yoga hosers. So
that's true. I saw Kevin Smith came out to my area to do a Q&A as well as a Hollywood Babylon.
Uh-huh.
And I went there and I got to see the Q&A before the Babylon, but you know as well as any, a Q&A with Kevin Smith is you get maybe 2 fucking Qs and then 4 hours of A's for shit that no one asked for.
Yep.
And so I was the number 2 question, and I had brought my copy of Yoga Hosers, which was because I well, maybe not currently, but I was the manager of a video rental store, the last one in Oakland. So that was my pitch, is when I got up and I said, Kevin, I work at the last video rental store in the Bay Area, And part of my perks is I get to get movies for dirt cheap that no one wants. And he said, I said, so I think I'm the only person who bought Yoga Hosers. And he said, well, I have the first copy. You have the second copy. And he said, well, anyways, what's your question? I said, my question is will you sign it? Because I don't really think I'll get this opportunity. He's like, oh, absolutely. Here. And one of my guys will come down and find you and grab the thing. And then he said this thing where he's like, it's amazing. You had this whole journey and now you've reached it. And I said, yeah, it took, I've been wanting to meet you for years. He said, and now we're here. We're all good. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, so you can sit down now. I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Thanks, Kevin Smith and all. And so then a dude came in, took my movie, and I just, in actuality, it worked out fine, but I was like, here, total stranger, here's the DVD that I want signed. You could be working for Kevin Smith. You could just be a dude. And then he said, here, I handle all his shit. I'm like, sure, I'm high on Kevin Smith. I'm, in my own world, Kevin Smith and I are going to be fucking skipping along, holding hands because he spoke to me and said my name. And that's something that you don't get that often. And yeah. And then obviously an hour later, the movie came back to me. And not only did Kevin sign it, but Ralph Garman also signed it. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I stood in line for Yoga Hosers at Sundance and didn't get in. And that he was like doing like a Q&A with Harley or something. And this was like before Chasing Amy. This was, this was 2016. That was my first Sundance. I had a short film at Slam Dance and like, I was just so excited. I was like, oh my God, Kevin Smith's in Park City. Like, and I was never like a diehard like Kevin Smith dude, but I always loved Chasing Amy. And it always had like this very special place in my heart and everything like that. And I was like, oh, this is really great. And the people I met in line were also Chasing Amy enthusiasts, but I never got to see it. And I saw it a couple months later on Netflix, and I was like, oh, okay. And I really like the Bratzy stuff, but it's not, not everything. Here's the thing, like not everything Kevin makes is for me, but it's for somebody, like
it's for him. Prominently.
It's totally for him, but I feel like Yoga Hosers is way more for my girlfriend. Like I hadn't seen Tusk until a few weeks ago, and
really?
Yeah, and I watched it with her, and she was emphatic about it. She was like, "This is the best movie. Make a movie about Tusk instead."
Well, and if I can give you one recommendation, and then we'll move on because we obviously are here to talk about your stuff as opposed to Kevin's, but.
Sure.
Hey, he gave us 3 hours.
He did give us 3 hours, yeah. Red State, if you have not seen Red State.
Oh man, I actually haven't, and I'm like, it's not like it was like a point of pride not to have seen all of Kevin's movies. I just never got around to it.
Sure.
Like, but I really meant it when I was like, I wasn't like a Kevin Smith diehard. Although as a kid, I probably would have said Kevin's my favorite director, and probably still, I guess, just because of what his movies, have meant to me. Like, I really love Dogma, I love Chasing Amy, I love Clerks, But I really do want to see Red State because it's based, I'm from Kansas, and that's totally based off the Westboro Baptist Church.
Yep.
And I remember my parents sitting down to watch it actually, and they were like, "This is too scary for you." Like when it came out.
Well,
because I'm like a sensitive kid,
And as Rico and I have said multiple times on this show, it is the most non-Kevin Smith movie that he's made without question.
And that's including Tusk.
And that's including Tusk. Yeah.
Tusk has some dick jokes. Like, Red State has very little dick and fart jokes. It is a horror film in the sense that this shit's happening. In the same sense of like, people can interpret Black Klansman as a horror film. Like, this shit's fucking happening. This is some scary as shit.
Which, by the way, I love Black Klansman. I fucking love Black Klansman.
I had a pretty visceral reaction watching it about halfway through. And because I say was because we're all fucking kind of unemployed right now, but when I would recommend to customers that want to rent Black Klansman, I would say I really recommend that you like stop halfway through and give yourself like a palate cleanser. Like go eat some ice cream, take some time, and then go back to it. Because hearing the racial slurs on a whole, it offends me, but it doesn't really offend me because I'm not the target.
Sure.
I have empathy for what's happening, but I have empathy for others because like my half brothers are Jewish, my nephews are Jewish. So watching this hateful fucking shit, but at the same time, like hearing those words, like in an average Tarantino film, we kind of have become used to it, whether we want to or not.
Yeah.
But there was a scene, and I'm not going to repeat the verbatim of the dialogue, but
yeah, please don't.
I agree.
There was a scene where a Klansman and his wife are cuddling in bed, and they're
horrifying.
You know what I'm talking about? And they're just talking about, are we going to kill them? Blah, 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 blah tomorrow. And they're just talking about it as casually as they would. Are we going to open up the barbecue and put some burgers out for such and such tomorrow? And that was the hardest thing, because it wasn't an issue for them to speak so freely. And that's what made me like, ugh.
Oh, yeah.
Because in retro, they look like nice people, and they talk, to each other. Like, we all want everyone to have a happy relationship. Right. These fuckers are happy for all the wrong reasons. So that's why I was like, I can't. I got to.
Well, right. and that's the reality. That's the reality is, you have these people who, and for me, like, as like a queer trans guy, I try to navigate the world assuming that everybody doesn't hate me, even though there's reasonable, I would say reasonable evidence to say that I should assume otherwise. Correct. So, but you look at something like BlacKkKlansman and what Spike and Kevin Wilmot and the other co-writers of that movie did is they just put it plainly. They reflected what reality is, and the reality is that the world is not safe for a significant number of people because you have white supremacists and Klansmen and Nazis in the world who make it not safe. And and I especially loved the character of that white supremacist wife. I can't remember the character's name off the top of my head, but she looks like she could be anybody's mom, and she is saying the most viscerally racist, horrific things that one can imagine. But that is the reality of it for so many black and brown people. And so and full disclosure, like one of my mentors, the other really important Kevin in my life, Kevin Wilmot, co-wrote that movie, and I'm so immensely proud of him, and like that he won an Oscar for it, and that Spike finally won an Oscar and everything like that. And it's just a reflection of how brilliant they are, though, and that they can totally capture and make anybody understand that this is what they go through on a daily basis. And I just have nothing but respect for that movie. It's one of my favorites now.
I definitely have to agree. I mean, my point, whenever someone said, "Oh, should I not watch?" I said, "No, you need to watch this. Everyone needs to watch this and be uncomfortable." Yeah. Just so you can have that self-satisfaction of being like, "Oh, I'm definitely not a racist. This is uncomfortable as shit. If I ever had a doubt in my mind that I was prejudiced, here's proof that you're not." So
right. Well,
I think a lot of that goes with Chasing Amy as well.
Sure. I mean, and talk about epithets in that movie. I mean, Banky's saying them, everybody's, saying them. Times have changed a little bit in terms of what is acceptable, I guess, to say. And not that I would say most LGBTQ people would say those were not acceptable words to say ever. But in terms of what you could depict in a movie, I guess is different now, because whenever I hear, it's interesting how times have changed. And like when people want to depict somebody who's prejudiced, like now that, what words are chosen, I suppose, like in a movie. Yeah. Like I feel like for Quentin Tarantino movies, he's got no problem writing racial epithets in there at all. And I'm somebody who's a Tarantino fan. But I think a lot of like when you see people on TV who are supposed to be prejudiced, like the terms that are used are not always the terms that I guess you would hear in real life. Like I remember getting targeted for stuff, and I remember the words that were said, and they're not always the words that are depicted in movies. So I don't know.
Do you think Kevin could make Chasing Amy now?
Yeah, we've had that debate a couple times. Yeah.
Not as is. Certainly not as is. But I think, for its time, it did something pretty radical. And I obviously have a relationship with the movie that is personal, and that, I love it and I respect it. And I also recognize why people wouldn't like it and wouldn't respect it. But it doesn't, change how I feel about it.
Right.
And I've often asked that question, though, to people for Chasing Amy, do you think this movie could be made today? And all of them have a resounding no.
I mean, my opinion is I think he could make it, but I think because so much time has happened and progressed for the gay community, I think he would have to go that extra leap and make it about transgenderism. But then it gets the iffy slope of, well, you know, how would he make that? There's also this, in my opinion, of filmmakers can be very brave when they want to make a touchy subject. There are also some that won't want to pursue it because of the touchy subject.
Sure.
You know, and I think there are some people that would look at transgenderism as a form of, I'm on their side, but I don't want to give off the wrong impression even if I'm on their side. I don't want to be labeled as such because I portrayed somebody in a negative way and they happen to be trans. So I think if Kevin would make Chasing Amy, it would be in that respect, but he would still be very respectful, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think I don't want to say too much and give anything away. You know, Chasing Amy, we're supposed to come out in 2022. We were aimed for 2021, but then the COVID-19 pandemic happened, and there's just so much that we can't shoot for the ending of the movie until it's safe to do so again. And I really wish I could just like spill all my guts and tell you everything I'm thinking, because everything you're saying is something that I have to comment on. But I can't really say anything about that quite yet, just because I don't want to give away the movie. However, when the movie's out, I will come back and I will tell you about all the things that I wish that I could say right now.
Okay, great.
Absolutely, and we'll definitely, we'd love to have you on at that time for sure. Not that we don't want you here today. But,
but I have a lot of opinions on a lot of what you just said, and I do think it's important to represent trans people on TV and in movies. And I think that, you know, my story in Chasing Amy that we show, you know, we really show the beginnings of my transition and how I came out and why I came out. And it was through the process of making Chasing Amy that I finally felt comfortable with myself to be able to come out as trans. And you know, I have a lot of opinions on it, and I'm hoping that Chasing Amy can really be a touchstone for people who have never met a trans person before. Because for so many people in my life, I'm the only trans person that they know. Because so many trans people don't disclose,
right?
But also so many trans people, you know, like they could have passed someone by in the bathroom and not have known. They could have passed somebody on the street and not have known. They could have had a conversation with a barista and not have known. You know, people don't really know who's trans, but I'm somebody who is very vocally out, because I feel a sense of responsibility to let people in my life know that the way that it has been is not acceptable. And to, you know, not that I think it's not that it's any marginalized person's job to necessarily educate, but I do feel like it is my job to educate, and to make it known that, you know, we're here, we're trans, and we want respect and we want dignity, and we don't want any of this bullshit anymore. We're tired of it. And so far that's been going great. I haven't lost any like friends or anything like that.
Well, that's good.
Not that I would expect to. I mean, I was already out as queer, so like but you would be surprised how many queer people do transphobic things or say transphobic things. Look at who J.K. Rowling's surrounding herself with.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
we don't have to get into that.
No.
My poor fiance loves Harry Potter, and I like bring it up every time, and I'm just so over shit like that. I'm tired of billionaires sitting in their fucking ivory towers telling trans people how to live, and we're just trying to, you know, get very necessary medical intervention so that we can live happy, you know, and very necessary social norms are happening right now, like are changing right now. And, you know, we're not going to sit down. We're not going to take it. We're not going to take any fascist bullshit. And we're going to just like be ourselves and not deal with it anymore, you know? We're done. We're done with that.
I'm glad you brought it up the way you did, Sav, because I actually have a trans friend. So I know someone who's openly out trans, and he has we were just talking today. Because I was telling him we were interviewing you, and I was really excited about the interview. And, you know, before you, he was the only trans person I could talk to, because the only person I knew that was. So it just being able to broaden my horizon is a good thing. And so I was just letting him know, like, I'm excited about the interview. And he came back to me and he's like, I just give up. He's not even, and it was nothing about you or your, but just with everything that's happened this week, and you know, we alluded to it at the beginning of the episode, and you know, Rico knows that I try to keep this show as apolitical as possible, but I think when we're talking about something like this, we can't help but get there a little bit, you know, and that's okay. I'm not. Rico, we've said there's going to be exceptions to the rule, and this is probably going to have to be one of them. But you know, with everything that happened with the stripping away of the what's the exact
non-discrimination protections for transgender people under the Affordable Care Act. Yes,
stripping that away,
a bunch of bullshit.
It is, and then. You know, I have a friend who is not in the community, but is a huge supporter. He does a Twitch stream every Friday and Saturday night, and he couldn't do it this week. He was so infuriated and so pissed off because he knows several people. He's friends with several people that he just couldn't even bring himself to go on and do it with it, because he knew he was just going to explode. And it's not that he shouldn't be vocal, because he don't believe me, Rico knows who I'm talking about, and he's a vocal dude, you know. So it's not someone who likes to stay in the corner, but it just affected him. And then, like I said, my friend August, my friend who's trans, he just is like, I give up. And I'm like, dude, don't give up. You know what I mean? And he's not talking about wanting to hurt himself. I don't want to make it sound like that. He's just...
Sure, but I get it. I get it, because that's how I was feeling on Friday when that news broke. I was angry, and I was pissed, and I was sad. I was sad more than anything else, because it feels like sometimes it's 2 steps forward and 10 steps back, you know?
Yeah.
And that's... But here's the thing. Being trans should not be political. Being queer should not be political.
No.
Being black, being brown, being any of these things that are under attack, being from another country, being of a different religion than our president, or his alleged religion, by the way. None of these things should be political. Do you know what's political? Going to a city council meeting and voting whether a stop sign should be on a corner.
Yes.
Deciding where funding will be allocated is political. People's identities and their lives and their dignity are not political.
Agreed.
And so, you know, I commend y'all for letting me come on here and talk to your, audience. I don't know. I assume they're mostly, folks like you who are Kevin Smith fans who identify with a lot of, of Kevin's movies. And I'm somebody who also identifies that way. But, we're not going to take it anymore. We're not going to be treated like this. And we will continue to fight, and we will continue to, organize and try to work to make this world better, because we're just not dealing with it anymore. It's just not acceptable. We're not gonna, do whatever Mike Pence wants us to do, which is probably go try to pray our gay away or whatever.
It is working for him, so
I don't know what his feelings are, but I try to avoid jokes that Mike Pence is gay, just because he's so homophobic. And like, I know a lot of people think that like homophobia is like, a result of not being able to accept yourself. But then in like a weird fucked up way, it's like blaming queer people for homophobia because they just can't accept themselves. Some people just really fucking hate us. And like, I think he's one of them. I mean, he calls his wife mother, which is a whole other level of shit.
That's just a level of fear that I can't handle.
I mean, I'm all for people doing what they want to do as long as they don't hurt anybody else, but he is constantly hurting people.
Sure.
And the fact that he's vice president of the United States and handling so much of this COVID bullshit when he is responsible for the largest outbreak of HIV in the state of Indiana is insane. Like, we are living in truly insane times. And I'm not, I'm just saying, like, if if you want to do something and you're angry about how things are going, it's not too late to do something. You can reach out to people who really need help, and you can reach out to the people who are getting really affected by this administration. And, I'm not trying to get you guys in trouble by, going on this little tangent here, but we're not gonna deal with this anymore. It's just unacceptable.
And Sav, first off, thank you for being concerned about our welfare. But first off, that's not nearly important as the things you were saying. Number one, number two.
But I try to be a courteous guest, and I also know that it's to be expected when you bring me on your show. But I am here to be a resource to people by being truthful about my experience. So if your followers are curious about how to help, like, I can direct them towards plenty of resources that can do that, they're total. Go to glad.org, figure out how to support your local queers.
No, absolutely. And then that's where, like, Rico and I are not going to sit here, and Rico, if I misspeak for you, please correct me, but I think I'm on board here. We're not going to sit here and pretend that we know what the struggle is like, because we don't. And we're not going to pretend it, but what we can do is be a vehicle for persons like yourself, like my friend August, if he chooses, or if anyone wants to. One of our closest friends identifies as bi, and she's perfectly okay with that, and she's one of our closest friends. So any of these people that we can be a vehicle for, we try to, and obviously supporters of, so. Of course.
But also, every privilege comes in different forms. Some people are financially, wealthy, and some are not. Some people have racial privilege, some do not. Some people have, privilege in their sexuality or their gender identity. And it's never a thing that's meant to be exclusionary. It's just recognizing who has more power here, who doesn't. And so when I say things like that, it's not meant to exclude anybody. It's more meant to, hey, let's focus on who's hurting the most right now.
Absolutely. And
I want people to understand that it's never an attack by saying that somebody has more privilege. God, if everybody could have the same level, that would be excellent, right?
Right.
But we just live in we're dealing with a lot of fascism right now, and that's the truth. And so, but I do appreciate y'all having me on and letting me speak my truth about this. It is appreciated. Thank you.
No, we're glad to do it, honestly. And just to your point about some people being privileged and some people just get handed really expensive, nice microphones. But that's a whole nother. I just had to turn it all around a little bit.
Oh, I don't. I do not doubt. Did we say that on the show?
No, but that's okay.
We say that on the pre-show?
No, we have jokes that make no sense except to us sometimes, frequently. So, let's.
Oh man!
I not to say that anything that we just discussed wasn't important, but certainly want to bring it around to a lighter mood a little bit. And
for sure, let's do it.
Let's talk about Chasing Amy a bit, and then by default,
that's a lighter subject
compared to what we just talked about a little bit.
Anything can be light with the right point of view, almost. Well,
but, I mean, when
I was going to say, Rico, you've been quiet for a while. What's happening?
I'm just thinking.
That is rare, by the way.
I know.
Well, I'm trying to be a decent host for once. I'm trying to let you say you. Well, because Sav and I have been the ones that primarily talked behind the curtain. I want you guys to actually have a fucking dialogue and get to know each other.
CJ rules, and now we're best friends, and now you got to catch up. Come on, man.
Well,
love it. Love it.
One thing I posted on Facebook the other day, or on Twitter, whatever the good one is at this point.
Is there one?
I don't think so. If I'm saying it, that's the good one. I posted this thing about how everyone is kind of ignoring the bigger picture of how trans rights and ultimately the gay community is taking that couple steps back, not of their own choice.
No, getting pushed back.
Thank you. And now they're arguing about whether SpongeBob being gay is fucking relevant. And I said, if you are focusing more on the fact that an animated fucking thing that lives in a pineapple under the fucking sea likes some other sponge dick, then you are missing the fucking point, and that you are a fucking problem. You're not maybe the problem, but you're a fucking problem.
Right, and if anybody's super indignant about the fact that SpongeBob is apparently queer, one, you haven't fucking seen SpongeBob before, all right? I'm a SpongeBob aficionado. Everybody knew that he is queer as the day is long. But also, like, good for Nickelodeon for saying it, and also good for the kids who are going to feel better because they know SpongeBob's queer.
Okay, so Sav, I'm glad you put it that way, and I would really like your feedback on this because I don't applaud Nickelodeon as much for this, and here's why. Right?
Okay, I'm ready.
Because I'm a huge fan. What, Rico?
I was going to say, you're a closeted sponge.
Yeah, no. This is actually, what I'm about to say actually has nothing to do with SpongeBob. My issue is that I'm a huge fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender and, by default, The Legend of Korra. Now,
yeah.
Are you familiar with the show or no?
I am familiar with the show. I was in college, I think, when Korra came out, maybe, and so or late high school. I had missed the boat on Korra, but I saw how everybody was super happy when it turned out that she was like bi and like was really excited. But I've also seen the critiques of Nickelodeon and how they handled that.
They handled it terribly. They pulled the last season, I believe it was after the 4th episode, and put it online only.
Whoa, not cool.
Because they knew where it was going. Like when they pulled it, she did not become. I don't want to say that wrong word. I apologize. Let me take that back. She did not come out. If she even came out, because they never actually say the words, but
they like hold hands at the end.
They actually kiss. There's actually a scene, of kissing. But it's like the last shot of the entire series. Like it's how the series folds, right?
Cool.
And it's a great. It's a beautiful scene. It's a beautiful sequence. I was 100% on board when it happened. I had no problem with it. But the fact that they pulled the show off of network television and put it to, you could go and watch new episodes each week. I think it was on Nick.com or whatever. But to go that route, to hide that, because that's what it felt like they were doing,
Right.
And now to be coming out and saying, okay, well, because I'm seeing a lot of pictures online of Korra next to SpongeBob, and celebrating both. Well, you weren't celebrating Korra, 5 years ago, so.
Right. So you're pissed at Nickelodeon for like trying to get credit now.
Yeah, you don't get to retroactively go, hey, we support. No, you're jumping on the bandwagon now. Fuck you. I'm sorry,
So at the risk of never getting employed by Nickelodeon, I guess, I guess my thought is that corporations are not our friends.
Sure.
Like in general, they are not our friends. They can have as great of social media managers as possible. They can, be pushing themselves in progressive new directions every day, and that's great. But ultimately, they're not our friends. They are not people. Even if Citizens United disagrees,
right.
They are not people.
Right.
And so, but we can always hope and we can always push that the people who are now running Nickelodeon are better than the ones who, were the ones that did that fucked up stuff to Korra, and I'm taking this off of what I've read limited in a limited capacity on the internet and what you're saying. And so my thought is they should get called out for that and they should atone for that, and hopefully they can get pushed into more progressive directions and actually have overtly queer characters that are queer the whole time and say they're queer and it's like a part of their character and it's fine and it's not a big deal. Like, I hope we can have that someday, but I think it requires people to push them that direction, unfortunately.
Right. And I think personally for me, and again, I'm probably not the person who should be getting angry, but still, if...
No, we need you to get angry. Get angry.
Okay, well, that's fine. I
do not want him to get fucking angry. Trust me.
Is his name secretly Bruce Banner?
Yes, that's, yeah.
Only when he's fucking around with, like, technical shit.
Oh, God. Tech will throw me off. But anyway, even if they had backpedaled a little bit and said, look, we screwed up however long ago and we should, but they haven't. They're just putting it out that Korra is in the community. Well, that's great, but you didn't, you made a mistake that you're not correcting. You might be openly supporting it now and that's great, but you still made a gaffe here that you need to correct, and
they're
they're
hoping
not doing
that. They're hoping no one remembers how they handled it before.
Well,
they're hoping that they get the praise for the freshness of, hey, everyone's talking about gay rights right now. The
problem with that though is that Korra, and to a lesser extent than Avatar, has a very large following, and that whole group is very vocal right now about, no, you guys kind of fucked this up,
Good.
And yeah.
I'd like to kind of point out, like, good, I'm mixed because good for them for making SpongeBob gay. Good for them. Good for them for giving children, especially, someone to maybe not identify with, but at least feel accepted with. I guess identify. You can't really identify with a fucking sponge in the ocean who lives in a fucking pineapple because
sure you can. He's he endows like a purity of heart that I think a lot of people appreciate.
But what if you don't like pineapple?
Well, then, you can identify with Squidward or Patrick.
See, that's my point is, were any of us, quote unquote, surprised that SpongeBob is not considered gay? Because he's kind of...
I believe Steven Hillenburg said he was asexual, but that can still mean he has, like, queer romantic feelings. But, yeah, of course a sponge is... Like, that totally tracks, but I mean, like, he's totally, like, into Squidward. Like, there's a whole thing where he's like, I like Squidward. Like, it's a whole moment in an episode. Yeah, pretty much.
But I think that would have been I think it would have been better if they didn't go for the quote-unquote obvious choice. If they went for someone that is quote-unquote normal.
I mean, I will say that everybody in SpongeBob is gay, and you cannot convince me otherwise. Look at that whole cast. Look at Squidward. Look at Patrick. Everybody on that... Sandy, everybody's queer in that show to me.
Sandy Cheeks is definitely, like, if I had to pick a lesbian porno name, it would be that.
Jesus Christ, man. That's brutal.
You still laughed. God. I think I'm okay.
Listen, man. Trust me. You'll know if you cross the line. It's totally fine. That was
genuinely
funny.
I don't fucking know. I don't want to know that cross the line. I want you to tell me off.
You're like afraid to laugh right now when I'm laughing. You made the joke.
I'm not afraid to. No, I own my joke. I'm just saying.
Maybe CJ's afraid to laugh.
A little bit.
CJ's always afraid of anything that comes out of my mouth. What? No?
Listen. Yeah. I am pro LGBTQ community all the way. I think, that queer people have been defining who's queer and who's not, in their own online spaces, whether it's through slash fiction or femslash or, online communities or fan art or whatever. We've been deciding who's queer and who's not forever. And so SpongeBob doesn't come as a huge surprise, I don't think, to many LGBTQ people. I don't speak on behalf of the community by any stretch of the imagination. Right. But, I mean, in my opinion, with my gaydar going off, everybody on SpongeBob tracks.
The thing is that we are definitely allies of the gay community, but we did get our own flack once.
Oh, really?
Well, sort of.
What'd you do?
Do we have to tell the story? Yeah.
We made a joke that Patton Oswalt sort of made.
Oh, you're talking about that one. I thought you were talking about that other story. Okay.
How many times have you been homophobic? Tell me now.
Well...
No, wait, don't actually. No, don't do
it. No.
On the show or privately?
Oh, man.
No.
As long as we're learning, folks.
Well, no, and that's, I'm glad you put it that way, Sav, because, like, I'm 40. So, when I was 17, 18, I will tell you, and Rico knows, and I've said this on the show before, I was very homophobic. And not to the point, and listen, I'm not sitting here making excuses, but I do believe there are different degrees. Like, I was never, like, kill people. Like, I never wanted people harmed. It was more, you stay on your side of the road, I'll stay on my side of the road, and just that. And that was really the extent of my homophobia. But at the same time, it was there. And then I got involved with a band. I love music. Music is like movies are for you. That's where my passion lies, but I can't play a thing and I can't sing worth a lick. So
you were in a punk band.
No, no, but that does track. But no, so I sit here and do podcasts instead. But that aside, I got involved with the band as a manager. I was good at management. I'm good at doing that aspect. So I got involved. And one of the keyboardists was gay and went right over my head for months. Like, no idea. And the band said one day he wasn't at practice for one reason or another, and I don't remember what it was. And it's not relevant to him being gay. He just wasn't there. And the rest of the band sat me down and was like, you know he's gay, right? And I had never said anything offensive because that wasn't who I was. I just, like I said, my thing was just stay over there, but I wasn't actively negative. And I had no idea. None. And so they explained it to me, and then the next time I saw him, his name's Dino, and he does not care that I say his name, but Dino and I sat down and had like a 3-hour conversation about it, you know, and then it was all positive, and by the end of it, I had a very different perspective. I was still a little uncomfortable just because it was new, but, you know, I had a very different perspective, and I spent 2 more years spending countless hours with Dino, like countless hours. I can't even begin to tell you how much time I spent with this band, including him, to the point that by the time I left the band, I had completely 180 degrees. And
that's amazing.
And
I wish everybody was that way.
Yeah, me too.
Do.
No, me too. I wish listen. The band and I have had some bad blood in the last year, and it has nothing to do with anything to do with sexual orientation. It's completely to do with other topics.
I would hope not. That's a weird band strife.
Yeah, it would be. But I forget where I was going now. Shit.
Damn it, I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, it's all right. It's all right, Sav.
You had a 180-degree transformation.
And I've never looked back. You know what I mean? I've never, he's a friend, he's an ally, not because of anything to do with his orientation, because he's just a friend. He's just a guy. He's a guy I know. And it turns out that he ended up re-identifying himself as, how did he re-identify? I think he went with pansexual. Is what he
that's what I am. I feel that.
Yeah, he ultimately kind of went that way because he was married to a woman for a while. Like, you know, and when I met him, he just said he was gay. So, like, but, you know,
terminology totally changes. I mean, when was this conversation where y'all talked about him being gay?
Oh, initially it was 99. Yeah.
Yeah, that tracks. Like, pansexuality has since become a more prominent term that people can identify with, but there weren't a ton of people, because the pansexual comes out of a late 90s activist scene where that term, like, comes from. Specifically in New York. I don't know where you're based.
I'm actually, something I was going to bring up with you, too. I'm in Jersey, so I wish I had known. I wish I had known you. Yeah, I wish I had known you when you came to do the shoots for Chasing Amy, because I would have, forget needing to be involved with the project, I would have just come and had a beer with you. But I mean,
that would have been so fun. We were just there in February before all the COVID stuff hit America.
Dude, I'm like an hour from the stash.
Oh my gosh!
So yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, so if you're ever back, we'll arrange it and get together. But
I feel like a lot of my future will be somewhere around New York or Red Bank. yeah, I love Jersey. But not to brush over what you just said.
No.
But I genuinely wish, though, that more people who previously were homophobic or transphobic had that point of view where it's like you just recognize that, you know, you fear what you don't know, which I think is a human trait, that people just fear what they don't know. I'm uncomfortable with change for sure.
Sure.
You know, as like a person in general, but like, I don't know. I mean, I just wish more people were like that. And I wish the people who were, you know, shitty to me as a kid would have just been like that and like been like, hey, sorry, man. Like, genuinely. And so for the record, as long as people don't commit like any hate crimes or make people's lives miserable, I have no issues with people who have since come around. Because I think that everybody's on their own journey, and you can't help where you're from or how you were raised or the lack of education that you had based on, you know, where you were or your environment.
And for me, Sav, it wasn't even about how I was, just because not that you were implying anything, and I understand that, but I also wanted...
Yes, your parents are great.
Yeah, no, well, because it wasn't anything about how I was raised, I just wasn't exposed to it, and that's really what it was, you know, I mean, so I developed false opinions based on zero knowledge, if that makes any sense, you know, so
totally.
Once I got...
societal.
Right. So once I got real knowledge and real exposure or real world experience, that's a better way than exposure, but real experience, then I got to form my own opinions and my own perspectives, and that's why it changed completely, because listen, I know this is going to sound a lot shittier than I probably intended, but I don't have any way to put it. I realized that he was just a person, just like anybody else. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was able to look past his orientation and just see Dino the human being. And then that clicked in my brain that everybody who has whatever orientation is just a human being. Now, if Dino's a shitty person, I cannot like him, but it has nothing to do with his orientation. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, sure. So, and you know, LGBTQ people have been systematically dehumanized for a variety of reasons throughout, you know, history. I mean, we get into this a little bit in the documentary, but, you know, so much knowledge about LGBTQ people, has been erased on purpose in history by fascists.
Yeah.
You know, there are those iconic photos of Nazis burning books. And
I saw that.
And a lot of that is Magnus Hirschfeld's research that he collected over the years, you know, and he ran a major sex institute that was positive for LGBTQ people to find, comfort in back in, you know, Germany. And, you know, so much of our history has been erased and we have been, systematically put down just like any other marginalized community, whether it's through the media or propaganda or, you know, just person to person shit. But, you know, it all has roots and tentacles in white supremacy, essentially. And it all stems from that, in the idea that if you're not this way, then you are not acceptable. So again, I don't, I'm happy that you were on that journey, man, because I'm sure your life has been a lot more fulfilling since you were able to let go of that baggage that you didn't even know you had.
Without question. Yeah. And I do have two very quick funny stories. Well, one thing, just a fact about Dino, and a very quick funny story about him, just because it entertains me to even think about it. So, the other thing that he educated me on much later, like not in that same conversation, but he's also a furry. So I got a very...
Oh, that is amazing.
Yeah. So I got some pretty good, not as in-depth, but I definitely got some interesting data about being a furry. And he actually, in 99 or 2000, I forget which year, he actually helped organize and run the furry convention in Philadelphia. Like, he was heavily involved in the convention.
Have you seen this documentary called Fursonas?
No.
Okay. So you should watch that. I know the dude that made it. He's also a furry, and he's in it.
Okay.
And it premiered at Slam Dance in 2016, the same year that like Yoga Hosers was at Sundance.
Sure.
You should totally watch it. Because it talks all about the convention and like the old guard of like furries and like the way that the message has to be controlled to the media. It is fascinating, and I'm very curious if your friend has seen it or likes it.
Yeah, well, again, like I said, we've had a bit of a falling out, so I wouldn't be able to ask him at this point. But I would still be interested in seeing it from my own knowledge base. But the funny story,
fascinating.
Yeah, it sounds like it. The funny story I want to share is that we were all at a show one night as a band, but not performing in it. So we were just there as spectators. And so as such, we didn't travel together. Because usually if we went to a show, if we were performing, we would all travel together. Well, Dino shows up in full drag.
Amazing.
And not just drag, but he also, because Dino had long, and still has last time I saw him, long flowing black hair, like wide, like it just naturally is frizzy and wide. He tucked it all up under like a platinum blonde bob. So he came up to me and I had a 20-minute conversation with him, not realizing it was him for any minute of it until he told me it was him.
That is fantastic.
Yeah,
sounds like he was really serving fish.
He really, yeah, it was.
CJ was flirting, and
no, I was not.
He realized what was happening.
No,
hey, you may have had a shot.
No, hey, maybe. Actually, you know what? That's, Sav, just to put a pin on that topic or that subject, really, that was one of the things that actually brought me to a place of comfort. Was Because at one point, I think I said something to him, and please don't hold me to the words because I don't remember exactly what I said, but I think I said something to the effect of just don't hit on me when we were having that initial conversation. You know, I said, you do you, just don't hit on me or whatever. And his exact response was that once I know you're a friend and straight, you're off limits to me. And for whatever reason, that put me at such ease. And I think that's a big reason why I was able to just be comfortable. You know, so to Rico's joke, it would have never happened. Do you know what I mean? Like,
are you afraid of sexual tension with your friend, or
not now? At the time, yeah, not now.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, because I've had time to learn and grow. Do you know what I mean? But at the time, yeah, it was still a little thing. But yeah.
Well, I was making a joke about how you would be unable to resist kissing him, but
no, I get it, but I feel like that was an important kind of way to put a pin in that conversation. So, you know, Christ, it's been so heavy, but it's been good. It's been good data, good knowledge, and I'm glad I'm sure you're glad we're talking about it. But let's. What's
Rico got to say though? He's trying to jump in.
When I was younger, I think about 14 or 15, I dated a bi girl, and she was very adamantly like, if I'm not bi, everyone else should be one of the type of bisexual. And she really wanted me to be bisexual, and she kept pushing that. She kept giving me reasons that I was bi, and especially at that age, I was more susceptible to when people said, you are this, I kind of believe them.
Oh.
And her argument was because I'm a massive, like, I idolize Sinatra, and she's like, your fascination with this man is not just he's a hero. You want something from him.
Was she serious, or was she messing with you?
She was serious, but she still messed with me as the outcome. Like, and it got to the point where I was so I was a big, massive fan of Johnny Depp, and she kept saying, there's something sexual about this. You don't just like Johnny Depp as an actor, you want to fuck him. You want him. And I'm like, I don't think that's true, but I was very easily manipulated in that sense.
Oh.
And the ultimate irony was, it got to me so much that I actually started to think, maybe I am bi. I was confused with my own sexuality in the sense that I'm like, I know I love pussy, and I know I love fucking girls, but I have also zero problem if a naked man walks in front of me. Like if I'm at a gym, I was more comfortable with men, but doesn't necessarily mean that I was like, maybe I'm bi, but I just haven't taken that mental or physical leap. So I actually came out to my mother.
Whoa.
But I'm not bi. And I said, that's the fucked up thing. It's like, Mom, and I preface by saying, Mom, I think I might be bi. I'm not sure. And she's like, whatever you are, you're fine. Just don't curse so much.
That's a good mom right there. That's a good mom.
But in retrospect, I also told my two closest friends, and since we're all 15 at the time, we're all more or less kind of stupid. Sure. And their first automatic reaction was, just don't try and fuck me. And I remember I told one of them, CJ, I think it was Michael. I said, motherfucker, I could do better. Like,
I think that's most queer people's response to when straight people say that is like, what? You're not my type. You would know it if I was trying to hit on you. You know what I mean?
Well, I told my buddy Michael in particular, I'm like, you would treat me like shit, man. Yeah, you're a good looking dude, but like, you would definitely never call me back. So why would I want to? But the ultimate irony is that I came out and I'm not the thing.
So
I'm not.
So you don't want to be known as famous bisexual Rico Rants? You don't want to be known as that?
No, I have no problem.
A nice ring to it, though, I gotta say. I mean,
famously bisexual Rico, co-host of PodAskew, host of Rico Rants. It's got a good ring to it. I'm just saying.
I got to agree with him a little bit there. I'm sorry.
Maybe that's how I can afford a fucking mic. Maybe that's how I have to do.
What are you going to get a sugar daddy for the sugar daddy that you're never going to fuck?
I'm Mike Curious.
I see. Mike Curious. Okay.
Nice.
And my friend Mike will be like, no, you're not.
That's good. No, I mean, That's, you know what that story reminds me of, though? It reminds me of that episode of The Office where Michael spreads a rumor, spreads all the rumors to avoid it being known that Stanley's having an affair. And then he spreads a rumor that Andy's gay. And for the rest of the episode, he's asking people if he's gay because he's heard the rumor before. And he's like, Michael, am I gay? No, he's not. But that's just what it reminds me of.
It was just so fascinating that she wanted me to be bi. It was really kind of like, well, I can't just be straight and be with you. Like, why do we both have to be bi to make you feel better?
You know, I don't know a ton of straight people anymore, I guess. So I guess I don't know. I guess I don't know like the ins and outs of that. Like basically like my whole like close circle of friends are, you know, they're all queer or trans or, you know, something. But I feel like pansexual people in particular are pretty smug that they're like the most elevated of the queers, because it's like, well, I could fall in love with anybody. I don't have to really even think about it that much. You know, like they put the person first as opposed to like a gender or sexuality. So maybe it's one of those where it's like, you know, I think I am elevated for having this approach to sexuality, and I think you should too. I don't know. I don't know that lady. You know,
and you bring that up, Sav, and that actually kind of leads me into something that kind of takes us back to Chasing Amy a little bit, which I kind of find interesting. Because, Enrico, you and I have talked about this a little bit too, I think, on the episode that you sent, Sav, is that there's that circle of Alyssa's friends after she's decided she's in love with Banky. Mm-hmm. That kind of like...
Hold it. No,
hold it.
Oh, hold it. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's a different movie.
That's a different movie. You're right.
I would love to see that fucking movie.
Right?
I don't think I would. Banky doesn't deserve her. Not by any stretch of the imagination.
That's probably true as well.
By the way, before you answer this, I just want to preface it to your audience. Like, I'm totally joking about the pansexuals thinking they're enlightened thing. Like, yes, some people do think that, but please don't take this as a way as like a smug stereotype. Like, pansexual people, they're all smug. Like, don't start that rumor. Don't get me in trouble for that.
If it makes you feel any better, it took me years to understand that pansexual meant they weren't fucking pants or anything. Like,
Who's that comfortable for?
The pot?
I don't think so. I mean, that is aggressive and probably give you a little bit of a rash. I don't know, man.
Yeah, like, a little bit.
I hear that joke so often that I just that is my automatic response to it now.
Well, I said that's how I thought, because pansexualism was a new concept for me, and ultimately, when I was talking about how we offended somebody earlier, it was more the fact that it was a response of us trying to keep up with the terms and the times of the terms of what to certain, you know, what to call certain people, because we're very much allies, but we don't want you guys to think that we are ignorant for the sake of being ignorant. It's just hard to keep up.
Well, sure. And when you're not thinking, you know, I mean, like you're going about your day, you're not, you know, reading every update that happens within, you know, spaces you're not a part of. I can understand that. But that's also why I sent you guys the Glad Media guides before I came on the show.
I have it right.
A little better.
I have it right next to me as we're speaking because it's a quick reference guide. So trust me, it's there. But no, and to Rico's point, that the Patton Oswalt joke was not anything anything in the community. The joke that we referenced was that they keep adding letters to the acronym and you can't keep up with it. That was the crux of the joke. There's more flush it out, but that's the basic premise of the joke. Is it like every day it's like LGBTQ RW? I mean, and obviously those aren't real, but you know what I'm saying? Like just they keep adding to the list. And we made the joke that, you know, we're supportive, and it's just hard to keep up, and some people didn't take too kindly to that joke. So
I think I heard a retort one time that was like, I think the retort that I heard was LGBTQIA has the same number of syllables as heterosexuality. You can keep up. I think that was.
Really?
I think that's what the response. I don't know if that's even the same amount of syllables. Your audience at home can check me on that, but it was something along those lines for that. But I mean, you know, I understand queer people who are like tired of hearing that, because like I'm tired of like I get tired when people like misgender me, like anytime somebody says she to me ruins my fucking day, because like, first of all, I mean, you can see me on this, your audience can't see me, but you can see me, I've got facial hair. My voice is a lot deeper now. I don't really look like a girl, I don't look like that. And at least in my opinion, not my fiance's opinion, and not the people who now call me sir, when, I'm out and about, doing errands and shit. So like whenever I hear that, it feels dehumanizing. And so I get people's frustrations, I have plenty of my own, but I also think that, I try to spend as much energy as possible, making sure I know who my real friends are,
Well,
you know what I mean? And I don't think people who fuck up are necessarily, the people that I should be mad at. I'm mad at the people who uphold these institutions, not the people who are
trying but fuck up accidentally.
Yeah, but even then, it's a personal thing. So I never get mad at anybody for being offended, I guess, but I also try to keep my own boundaries, because if I got offended every time someone said something stupid about anything, I would just be mad all the time. Tons of people don't know shit, and it's not my job to check them on it every goddamn second, Right.
Well, and
I would like to go ahead.
That's my biggest fear. Like, see, so Sav, I met you now, so you're just Sav, you're he. Do you know what I'm saying? And that won't be a problem for me ever. Do you know what I'm saying? But my friend, when I met him, he was she. Flat out 100, I mean, identified as. Maybe he was dealing with it internally, but externally.
Publicly, he was a she.
Publicly.
Publicly, yeah. And I have not seen him since he actually went through, because he's kind of at the point where you're at now. He's got, he now has facial hair. I think his voice is deeper. I haven't spoken to him in a while, because we talk primarily online through like chat and whatever. But I'm very afraid of the next time I see him not on purpose, but because I spent so much time with him when he was she, to make that mistake. You know what I mean?
Well, and here's what you do when you get corrected. You just say thank you for the correction. And you don't need you don't necessarily say sorry, because then that makes them have to comfort you for your misstep. And that's an easy way to deal with it, is like, hey, that's my bad. Thank you for correcting me. And then just move on. I feel like it's worse when people make a huge deal out of it. Like, for me personally, I don't know how your friend feels, but for me personally, if somebody accidentally does it and they do the whole thing where it's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, and then they want to keep talking about it. Like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, I'd prefer to forget that this happened. Right. Let's just keep moving and retrain your brain. And it takes practice, but it's ultimately for the benefit of somebody you care about. Right. So, so that's my advice on that, is to don't be so afraid, just practice. And then if it does happen, you say, thanks for the correction. I appreciate it. And then you move on.
Well, that being said, I'd like to publicly say that it was autocorrect that called you a fucking lesbian when you and I were discussing this privately. It was not me. Because that was me.
Oh yeah. He
fuck you, Siri.
Yeah. It was. Oh no, that was a Android problem right there, man.
Fuck you, Google.
Yeah, because I was like, clearly you are a lesbian. I'm like, and as I sent it, because it just deleted that not, because it was all in caps. My phone sometimes was all in caps. Like, no, you don't mean to actually say this, right? I'm like, and
Rico, you're fine. You don't have to apologize. We already talked about it privately. You don't gotta keep apologizing for shit.
I'm not apologizing. I'm just saying.
Why aren't you apologizing? I'm just fucking with you.
Fuck you. I'm trying to fucking have a show here. You're making me feel uncomfortable.
I wanna double back to the question I started to ask though about chasing Amy, where Rico and I saw that we discussed that scene, and we felt like that was equally the other way of like,
heterophobia.
Yeah, but say it again, Rico, because I don't think he heard you.
Heterophobia, which you never see. I mean, that whole scene of Alyssa sort of coming out in another way about how she's now dating a man to her lesbian and friends, and how their visceral reaction of, oh my God, another one bites the dust. How dare thee? And pouring a giant glass of wine, I felt was easily my favorite part of the whole fucking movie, because to me, it's it shows that gay people can be biased or prejudiced as well. In a sense, they can be judgmental.
Sure. But I have a few things I want to say. So one,
Please.
I wouldn't say that heterophobia is a thing. Heterophobia would be if there were decades and centuries of systemic, like like if you were heterosexual and you had to go to conversion camp, if you had to pray your straight away, stuff like that. So I'm just gonna say that. But I do think that scene shows biphobia and panphobia for fucking sure. And that kind of tribalism is absolutely present within the LGBTQ community. And we say community, but, I don't know how – I only know anecdotally that I feel like I'm all in it together with my friends and we acknowledge each other's struggles and try to support each other. However, in the world, there's a lot of tribalism. Just as there's a lot of, gay, lesbian, bisexual people who don't like trans people because they think it's a threat to what they perceived as progress. Or, it's lesbians and gays who, can be prejudiced towards bisexual and pansexual people. I couldn't even think of the word. That's what I am. Bisexual and pansexual people. That tribalism is absolutely accurate. I felt that scene was very real. And I was surprised by its accuracy for Kevin being a cis straight guy who, just kind of knew LGBTQ people. And I've always thought that scene was really accurate. I've also seen some lesbians who think that scene is homophobic. And I can understand that, but also as as somebody who grew up hearing I would never date a bisexual guy, I heard that all the time. And there are tons of people who won't date bisexual men because they think that they're going to give them an STD or something. They don't trust men who also have sex with men and also have sex with women. Same for, lesbians who won't date bi women. I see this shit on Twitter, man. This stuff is totally real. There's evidence for it and it's accurate. And so seeing that scene, of course Alyssa was playing the pronoun game with them, which has aged in a more interesting way because she keeps saying they, and with non-binary people being able to come out now, that makes it even more interesting and can add another layer to it that Kevin Smith could have never fucking predicted.
Sure, sure.
But no, it's totally accurate in my experience, but I also am open to hearing about the experiences of other people who don't feel Chasing Amy's accurate. But I mean, the biphobia, panphobia, that's fucking real. And that tribalism within the LGBTQ community is something that I try to address in Chasing Amy. Because, whether it's transphobia or biphobia or whatever it is, where there's weird gatekeeping, and there's this idea that by us being able to be ourselves is antithetical to what progress has already been made, just makes no sense to me. And it doesn't make sense to a lot of people who have similar lived experiences to me. And so I'm really glad you brought that up because it is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And it does not feel like a guy with Kevin's life experience at that time made that scene. It felt like, something out of a Guinevere Turner movie. It felt actually a lot like that scene in Go Fish where that there's a lesbian sleeping with her guy friend and she's imagining all of the flack she's going to get from her fellow lesbians. And they're like, well, why don't you call yourself bisexual? Well, I don't identify as bisexual. He's nice and he wanted to have sex with me and I was having fun. It's this whole thing that's even present in actual lesbian gay movies, that kind of addressing of tribalism. And it's totally necessary to talk about. So, yes, I love that scene.
You actually hit the nail on the head because if memory serves me correctly, Gwen Turner actually told Kevin to put that scene in and validate it.
Oh, I don't know. I've interviewed Guinevere. I would have to go back and ask her. I'd like to talk to her again about that, and I'm hoping to interview her again. So I will specifically ask. But from my understanding, at the present moment, Guinevere basically signed off on the idea of Chasing Amy. She gave it a read, and basically her critique of Chasing Amy was that Kevin had written the term tongue fucking into the script. To which she said, that's not a thing. And he took that out and then gave her a cameo role in it when she's Yes, at Meow Mix, the gay bar, the lesbian bar, rather. They're all called gay bars now, but
there was a gay bar. Was there?
It was a lesbian bar.
Yeah, it was a lesbian bar.
So lesbian bars used to be more of a thing, but but a lot of these spaces specifically for queer women have kind of gone away for a multitude of reasons, but mostly they're just like financially not doing well. But as the idea of the LGBTQ community has come together, from my own upbringing, it seemed like everybody just convened at gay bars. I didn't know until I moved out of Kansas that lesbian bars were a thing, that there were specific places for specific people, or the history of gay bars, not letting in people of color or trans women, like those are all like, there's a ton of fucked up history there. Again, talking about tribalism. But yeah, that's, as far as I know, those are Guinevere's contributions to the movie. I'd also be curious about Bob Hawke's contributions to the movie. And I've talked to Bob a lot about what he advocated for. And his big thing was that he advocated for the ending where Holden proposes the three-way, which I find hilarious, just knowing Bob is like this 82-year-old man who's like, yes, make them try to have a three-way. Go for it, Kevin.
I'd like to point out that Bob Hawke just actually entered like physical rehab today.
He did today?
Or within the past couple weeks or something.
Yeah. I saw his Facebook post, and I'm just, I'm gutted for him. I miss that man a lot, and I hope he, has as much of a recovery as he can. And when COVID's over, fully intent on going to visit him because, he's somebody I actually met through the TED residency. They hooked me up with him because his step-nephew, was the projectionist, and the theater manager at TED. And so I fully credit TED for being able to connect me with Bob. And, Bob is somebody who's just helped so many people along the way and is a godfather of indie cinema, not just gay indie cinema, but indie cinema. And I highly recommend, if people don't know about Bob, to go watch Filmhawk. It's a documentary that's available on iTunes. I just go check it out.
Yeah, someone else suggested that on an episode a while back, Rico. It's come up before. That movie's come up before, but
I have been wanting to reach out and invite him, but knowing that he was, indisposed, so to speak, I felt like I would wait, and also because he's an elderly man. I mean, he's still a young elderly man, but he's still an elderly man, and I want to be respectful. But I would love to have him on the show and pick his brain.
He is a hoot, and he knows. It feels like he knows everything and he knows everybody. And it's just, you can't meet somebody who's working in the festival scene or in indie film who he hasn't touched in some profound way.
Well, maybe he could pass along a fucking message to me to Mark Hamill, because I've been trying to get that guy on the goddamn show for
I just have to back up to a very quick thing you said a little while ago, Sav, because you mentioned that scene also, the scene that we've been referring to with the women and the pouring one out for Alyssa, for lack of a better phrase, was also perceived as a little homophobic. And I'm curious how. Not that I'm saying you're wrong. I'm just curious how that comes to be.
I think people are upset that, and this isn't all people, but this is some of the critiques that I've heard. Some of the critiques that I've heard about Chasing Amy, specifically as it pertains to the scene where Alyssa tells her lesbian friends that she's dating a man, is they're upset that lesbians, when they're portrayed at all, are all portrayed as, sticks in the mud, people who wouldn't be accepting of their friend, that the fact that they're shown as biphobic, and the fact that that's the one depiction of lesbians in the movie, is that they're ragging on their friends for finding love. And I think they would argue it's homophobic because it comes from Kevin. Because he doesn't know this community. That's the argument that I have heard time and time again.
Right.
That's not to say that's the predominant opinion. What I have learned making Chasing Amy is that there is no predominant opinion. You can ask 100 people about Chasing Amy, and you will get 100 different responses.
Right.
Because this movie somehow seems to be like a cultural Rorschach test for a lot of people. It seems like...
I can see that, yeah.
That's great way to describe it. Holy shit.
Thank you. I mean, people really see what they want to see with this movie. It can either uphold your own homophobia, or it can it be a movie about bisexuality, about pansexuality. It can be a movie about a straight guy turning a lesbian. It can be fucking anything, depending on your point of view when you come into it.
I view it as a movie of Ben Affleck acknowledging that he stuck a finger up his ass. That's how I only view that film.
See, and you would be the only person in that 100 people who had that opinion, and then everybody else would have something else to say.
For the record, that's not exactly how I feel that fucking movie.
But what I can say more seriously is that I looked by the time I saw Chasing. No, I did not have a finger up my ass. No, okay. So
disappointing.
Just quickly,
that's okay. It's okay to do that.
Anyway,
the safe space.
Safe space. Yes. No, there's no safe space with Rico when it comes to me. Everyone else, yes, not me. So
I don't know what that implies.
I don't know either. I was just going. Anyway,
Did I leave?
No, please don't actually. No, but I
want you to watch.
So by the time I saw Chasing Amy, I had already had that transformative moment with my friend Dino. So I was beyond that homophobia. I only saw it as a love story. It had nothing to do with sexual orientation to me. Yes, I mean, obviously it plays a role. It's in your face. You can't ignore it. However, to me, the bigger point was the love story and the being in love with somebody who doesn't love you back. Ultimately,
12-year-old Sav ate that up, by the way. That was why I loved Chasing Amy so much to begin with. It was like, oh my God, I have all these feelings. I don't know where to put them. I'm going to put them on this movie.
I noticed that from your TED Talk. Like, that was the thing. You said a lot of important, positive things throughout that TED Talk, but the one thing that, for whatever reason, stuck for me was you talking about the tropes that it employs, and so much so, and Rico knows this story because I know I've shared it with you, and I think I've shared it on air. There was I've been with my fiance now for 4 years, but there was a girl that I had known for 14 years that I was madly in love with prior to meeting my fiance, and I never had the guts to tell her.
Wow.
And I didn't know how to tell her, and I watched her get married, and I watched her get divorced, and I never said a word, and one day I decided to say something. And the only way I knew how to do it was I took the clip when Holden's professing his love to Alyssa in the truck when it's raining, and I sent the clip to her, and that's all I did. And she got it exactly what I meant and hasn't talked to me since.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
It has been brutal, and it sucks because we were friends. So that's what I'm saying. That's why I felt like that clip more than anything fit, because we had that friendship that Holden and Alyssa have before it transitions to a relationship. We had that level of friendship. So I thought it would have worked, and it backfired tremendously. But,
well, I mean, that is brutal, especially because that monologue is, to play on Kevin's words there, it's the epitome of everything you would want somebody to say to you if they were in love with you, right? And you wanted them to be in love with you back. So that's brutal. I'm sorry, man. I mean, I
appreciate it. I'm not looking for the empathy per se, but it just, because, like, there's so much. I feel like that movie gets so much attention because of the dynamic of straight and homosexual and all the parts of the community that are represented or maybe even underrepresented, and there's just, at the end of it, at the core of it, it's just a love story,
Yeah, and it's, that tagline that Miramax stamped on, it's not who you love, but how, that's the movie. It's the movie. I mean, and I feel like it taught, for me at least, I feel like it taught 12-year-old Sav. It's like, okay, if you get a good thing going with somebody, you're not going to act like this, and you're going to try to, just be understanding no matter what it is, and try to really put the person first. And I feel like that was like the biggest takeaway I had from the movie, outside of anything, sexuality-wise, was don't be an asshole. Don't be a fucking asshole. Just stop it. Just stop being a petulant child and love the person who has decided that you were worthy of their time. Like, fucking love them, you know? And I've tried to embody that. You know, my fiance is back there. You can see it on the camera here. Your audience can't see it, but she's actually, right back there.
I think your very expensive microphone's blocking her. I'm not even joking.
Oh, let's see.
There she is. Hello. How are you? So,
you know, so I met my fiance at 17 online. She's from Mexico. We were friends for a year and a half. I was in love with her the whole time. She was the first person I came out to because I wanted her to know I was interested. And she started dating somebody else, and I didn't say anything the whole time. And I was like, I'm going to be her friend. I'm going to be her friend. I'm going to play the long game. I'm going to be her friend. Because my life is just better for her being in it. Mm-hmm. And I swear to God, like, you know, eventually after she and this other person broke up, I told her how I felt about her. I just kind of exploded one day. I just couldn't handle it anymore. I was like, you know, it was that thing. It was that Holden moment where, you know, he can't be around her for another fucking second without her knowing.
Yep. You couldn't hold back.
There we see. We got that.
You see what I deal with on a weekly basis? Do you see this? What? This is the kind of bullshit I deal with weekly.
Hey, Rico, I accept you. Don't worry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Someone accepts it.
Go ahead, Sav. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, though.
Counseling. No, you're good. So anyway, I just like exploded, and I told her, I was like, do you not know that I'm in love with you? And I said it like that, and I was like mad. I was like, I was like, God damn it, you know, like, do you not know? And she was totally taken by surprise and just kind of was like stunned, like in silence. And we like, by the way, we were people who talked to each other like we were in love with each other. It's like, wouldn't it be funny if we had sex? Ha ha ha. You know, like we would love that. Ha ha ha. You know. And I told her, and she was
laugh I've ever heard. Thank you for that.
Pretty much. And I told her, and I was like, do you feel the same way? And she just kind of shook her head, and I hung up the FaceTime call, and I was just like, okay. And then it was weird for like 3 days. And then a couple days later, she calls me on FaceTime again. And this is when she's in Mexico. I'm in the United States. I'm in Kansas. And she basically was like trying to start a conversation with me. And I decided to get drunk because I couldn't talk to her sober. And I was like, you know what? I'm still in love with you. I don't care if you don't feel the same way, but you need to know that I'm in love with you and I will never stop. And she was like, I love you too. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I am in love with you. And she's like, I love you too, dumbass. And that went on for a bit because I was drunk and belligerent. But then pretty much since that day, August 16th, 2014, we have been together and we are engaged now. And you know, when I came out as a trans guy, she was the one doing all the research to figure out what my medical necessities would be. By the way, she still identifies as a lesbian. It's none of my fucking business how she identifies, you know, like, but she still loves me and she loves the changes that are happening to me and she loves that I'm happy with myself. And she has also put that into practice. It's not who you love, but how.
Right.
And she is my best friend in the fucking world. We're in quarantine now, but even if we weren't, we'd probably still hang out 24 hours a day together. We've got 2 beautiful little pugs, and, you know, she is the love of my life. And I could not be more grateful for that. And I feel like seeing Chasing Amy at such a formative age made me realize, okay, so when you do meet somebody, when you do get lucky enough to meet somebody that could be that other, you know, part of you, a soulmate, for lack of a better term, I guess, like, treat them well. And it didn't matter to me if it was a guy or a girl or a non-binary person. It didn't matter to me where they were from. I just wanted to feel that kind of love. And I feel that with Riley, and I'm fucking lucky to have that and to have something so special. But I feel like I had all like the bad stuff that Holden had, where, like, you know, she was from another country. She had way more life experience than me. She had kissed other people. I hadn't kissed that many people, you know, like, right. She was so much more interesting than me. And sometimes I would feel small by comparison because I didn't think I was that interesting. I was a kid from Kansas who had never been anywhere else. I was alone and by myself for most of it. And pretty much through her friendship and through, you know, her believing in me, I've been able to, I feel like, become the person that I wanted to be, you know, when I met her. Like, I wanted to be a dude who's going to have a beard. I wanted to, be able to make movies. I wanted all these things. And it was when I got out of my own way and tried to learn from Chasing Amy in that respect, I feel like my life got just so much better. So that's an aspect of Chasing Amy that I don't get to talk about very much because people want to talk about the sexuality stuff. But genuinely, like, it was an emotional toolkit in some ways for me to not just totally fuck things up when I met somebody who was going to blow my mind the way that Alyssa Blue Holden's.
Right, and we referenced earlier, just because I want to add to your point. Rico and I have said multiple times that Red State is his most adult film, but his best film is still Chasing Amy. So just to get, and I know you listened to the one episode, I don't know if you got to listen to anything else, but so to give you a quick background on how Rico and I met, and sorry to the audience because you've heard this story, like the way that Rico and I started the show, I've had a podcast once before that is now defunct, and I was probably about 18 months to 2 years without doing a show, and I got a little itchy to do another one, and I put a message. We're both on the World of Kevin Smith fan page on Facebook. And so I just put a post up there in general saying, hey, I want to do another podcast. I'm looking for a co-host. People hit me up with your ideas. And a multitude of people hit me up, and without getting all the specifics, because there's more to it, Rico's ideas were the ones that fit the best from my perspective. And so we started talking, and here we are. And
Brad. The
thing that I found really interesting is when we finally dug into Kevin's movies, which I'm proud was not the first thing we did. The first episode of this show that we ever talked about was all about Star Wars. Like, we did not talk Kevin Smith's movies in detail until the episode we sent you, actually.
Wow.
Which is probably like 12 episodes in, I want to say. I don't have the episode list right in front of me, but I want to say it's like 12 episodes in when we
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. And I found it really interesting that both Rico and I could have easily picked Clerks or Mallrats or, Dogma even as our favorite. And we're both like, no, it's Chasing Amy, And so I think, and Rico, correct me, because I could be wrong here. I'm probably wrong, actually. But I think I saw about your doc long before we knew who you really kind of were. Like, I think I just saw the title floating around somewhere. Like, and I said to Rico, like, check this out, Yeah,
I think you were on our radar just because we were just like, oh my God, someone mentioned Kevin's name. Or someone knows Kevin or something. Like, we were kind of at that point of our fandom of just being like there's an article and they mentioned Kevin Smith once and he has nothing to do with it, just making a joke. Like, we were that kind of fans. And then so you were popping up here and there in like the World of Kevin Smith, the Facebook group and shit like that. But yeah, I mean, we're both, I think that's why I initially had reached out to you, because I reached out to you way before the initial, like, okay, we're going to start planning and actually do this. It was before COVID, but even COVID wasn't a thing. We were just like, let's do this. I think,
and you were super nice, and I was like, I want to get to know this dude. Like, Kevin Smith fans have all been like extremely kind to me. Like, anybody who's bothered to reach out, has been so kind. And this is yet another example of what happens when you have a sense of community, whether it's based around Kevin Smith movies or not. And so I'm just grateful that I feel like I was taken in like a stray puppy by, by so many of you.
Well, I think, we did a dual episode about fandom and obsession and toxic fandom.
Oh yeah. I've
got
so many opinions on that because I feel like personally, like I'd be grateful to be known as the person that like talked about Chasing Amy a bunch, but like I never wanted to be seen as like a fanatical person. Like, my reasons for liking Chasing Amy, I feel like are very valid. Not that there's anything wrong with liking things a lot, but I never wanted my whole identity to be based around somebody else. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I always wanted my stuff to stand up for itself. And I'm always skeptical of people who like don't factor their own self-worth into their fandom, and like they spend their whole life, just, I don't know, like it feels like their identity is somebody else's identity. And so what I love about Kevin Smith fans is that they take their love of his movies and they go out and create their own art with it. Like whether it's making a podcast or wanting to make movies, like everybody who works on Chasing Amy either really likes me or they really like Kevin Smith, and like that's it, and that's what I love about Kevin fans is like it's not like a bunch of shippers whose whole identity is based around our Dante and Holden, Dante and
Randall.
Randall, fuck. Thank you. Or Banky and Holden, like, are they going to be together? And that's their whole identity, is that relationship that they're a fan of. That's what I love about Kevin Smith fans, is like they go out and make art and like they show respect for other movies and they show respect for these things, but they take those ideas and what they've learned and they go out and make shit. And I love that. I love that. So anyway, that's a whole other tangent, but just to say that I respect that.
No, absolutely. I think that's just to add to that very quickly. I think that's a lot of that comes from Kevin when he's in public being like, go make things. Like he's very much go make things, go do this. Like I got into podcasting, like that first show that I told you it's defunct now, was a direct result of listening to all of Kevin's podcasts, and at the end of every episode, him going, "Hey, go make a podcast." Like almost every episode, he says that, and you get that beaten in your head, 5-6 times a week, every week for 2 years or whatever it was. You start to go, all right, let's try that, And
I love that.
Yeah.
That's absolutely so valuable to have creators being like, hey, you can do this too. This is accessible to you too. Yeah. Like it's so important because it doesn't seem like it's a job until somebody tells you it's a job, right? Or a thing that you can do. All of this seems so unattainable until somebody's like, you have the power to do this, right? Like I was in a comic book shop like before COVID, and my local comic book guy was like, you keep talking about wanting to make comics. Why don't you just go do it? You make films, and those are way more expensive.
Yeah.
And I had to put my money where my mouth is, and now I'm like trying to make a comic, this, but it's all accessible. As long as somebody gives you permission, I guess,
We should really connect him with SK.
Yeah, we definitely.
We know. Here, hold on. Again, our audience can't see this, but we'll let you see it.
All right.
Do you see those?
You should put your glasses on. Sam.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm closer. I can see it. Yeah.
These are
that rocks.
These are ash cans of a comic book called Music Maker that a woman from Pittsburgh named SK Melview, I think is how you say her last name. It's a little
Melvo, I think.
Melvo. Yeah, it might have been Vo, I think is how she said. These are books she's self-publishing and self-putting out, and they're amazing. And the reason I have these is because we've been a pretty big supporter. She's actually, I think I can say this. I hopefully don't get in trouble. She's writing us into issue 7 because we've been such supporters of her. So,
fuck yeah!
Yeah,
way to go, Blood Man Chronic over here. What's up?
Yeah. But she's doing that. We've helped her with her GoFundMe for the comic. So wow. Yeah, so it to your point, like you just do it, and then I think you and her should talk. So we'll get you her contact info. Yeah,
and on top of that, if you want us to help you plug it, you just have to put us in an issue. Is what the underlying
that's
thing
the rub. That's the cat. By the way,
you want to be in a comic called Pancake Skank? I can make that happen. I know a guy.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And if
I don't mind being the band Skake.
And if you want us to
Skank.
Okay, pancake shake.
And if we're gonna plug the movie, we have to be in that too. So you just be aware of that. No, I'm kidding. But let's actually get into that because you've alluded to different aspects of it, and I know there's certain things you want to save for when the movie's released, and I respect that 100%. But give us a little bit of a little more detail about it from what you can of what Chasing Amy is, what it's trying to accomplish, what you're doing with it.
I can do that. I've practiced my elevator pitch a few times. So Chasing Amy is a documentary that dives into the cultural impact of Chasing Amy as an LGBTQ film and its results with LGBTQ people, but it's also an autobiographical look to what Chasing Amy did for me as an individual and its profound, lasting impact there. I know I said impact like 3 times there, but I could not think of a synonym. So anyway, we talk about basically what Chasing Amy is to the public and then what it is to me. And we dive into the history of this movie and my quest to get some answers, I guess, on this extremely personal journey. And then, a lot changes. I had a different name at the beginning of this movie. And now I'm known as Sav, and that's my name. And I came out as a trans guy in the middle of it. And it just got intensely more personal from there. And there are some strange parallels in my life between my life and Chasing Amy, whether it's how I ended up being the dude dating a lesbian or having a similar.
You're going to be Batman?
Yes, that is true. I am right after R. Pats. I'm next in line. I've got the physique for it. I'm all ready. No, but whether it's me, being the guy dating a lesbian now, or becoming a filmmaker because Kevin made a movie, and a movie that's not always well regarded by LGBTQ people, that help an LGBTQ guy become a filmmaker. It's all very strange and meta sometimes, but it's just an intensely personal story in the way that Chasing Amy itself is a personal story. So there are a lot of weird parallels there, but basically it's just showing and I will tell you, I started this movie hoping to just make a movie about Chasing Amy. I did not intend to be on camera this much. I did not intend for virtually any of this to happen. And then just by virtue of being honest with myself and what my needs were as a person and the results of things that have happened while making this movie, it has become so strange and so spectacular and has changed my life profoundly. And I couldn't ask for anything more. And so we're hoping that this movie is ready in time for the 2022 Film Festival circuit, hoping it exists. And we're excited to share, what we've learned along the way. But what started off as a very niche thing has turned into a film about LGBTQ identity and what happens when you feel that you exist for the first time and what that can unlock in you. I think that would be a good way of putting it, because I don't really know if I felt like I existed before seeing Chasing Amy. I was a kid who was sad and didn't have a lot of friends. And, I know a lot of people are like this. I'm not special, but What is special is that a very specific movie gave me a sense of agency, one that I shouldn't have seen, one that probably didn't mean a lot to a lot of people the way it meant to me. And what happens as a result of that. So it's extremely specific and maybe it is niche, but I think it could have a big impact. And so, and I hope it can be used as an educational tool. And hopefully it makes, people who don't know anything about trans people and people who think they know a lot about trans people, reevaluate, their own biases and, their perspectives on LGBTQ people. So, I hope that was informative. I know it can be hard to grasp without knowing the everything that happens. I just don't want to give too much away. But did that make sense?
No, absolutely.
That was the most informative elevator ride I've ever had. Like,
yay, good.
we went up and down a couple fucking times, dude. That was great.
Thank you.
I think the best thing that I could say about Chasing Amy on a personal level is that it doesn't matter your identity, your gender, your whatever. Everybody has in some form a Chasing Amy story. It's usually what CJ said, which was, he was in love with someone and got rejected ultimately. I mean, we all have that heartache story. And whenever I recommend Chasing Amy, because I'm always pushing Chasing Amy at work, because I say, it is very rare for me to have a top 10 to narrow down all my favorite films into top 10. It's damn near impossible. I can't even say I have a favorite film.
Ooh.
I have to expand it. That's my point. Is I when someone says, "What's your favorite movie?" I'm like, "Well, what fucking genre?" So when it comes to telling people about Chasing Amy, I'm always saying this is the most honest, raw portrayal film of sexuality, relationships. At the time, I would say heterophobia, but you've since corrected me, and thank you for correcting me. Biphobia, or homophobia, as well as just being an overall asshole, and how, the message of the movie is, it doesn't matter what you are, people suck sometimes. I mean,
for sure.
The part of the thing that I find fascinating is that Banky eventually, as we know, is a gay man. Mm-hmm. Does that what?
I would argue that he's bi. Bi or pan.
You'll just have to wait for Chasing Amy to come out to find out.
It's got. Okay, all right.
PodAskew exclusive.
All right, so I have to ask you this, Sav. Did you interview Jason Lee for this?
No, we've put in a request to interview Jason Lee, and we are just waiting to hear back. So I would love it if he wanted to be involved. I am just waiting to hear back from people with a lot more connections than me to get a response from him, if I understand the situation correctly. So, yes, I am waiting to hear back from him, and I'm also waiting to hear back from Affleck. But there's a lot happening in the world right now, so I'm not gonna, push too hard or anything like that. If it's meant to happen, it'll happen, but we're gonna make damn sure. I mean, we're not gonna release until 2022. There's plenty of time to get these folks involved.
Yeah.
But we do have Kevin.
Affleck, I think you'll get Affleck if you start the email by saying, like, Affleck, you were the bomb as Batman, yo.
I
here's the thing,
genuinely love his Batman. Like,
so do I.
I love his Batman.
Great. Yeah, his Batman is fucking awesome.
Here's the thing I'll say about what you were just saying, though, Sav. I'll be honest with you. Like, obviously, getting Ben is a huge deal. I'm not gonna play that down. I mean, Ben Affleck's Ben Affleck, right? But to the little bit that you've shared about the content of your film, I think Jason Lee's the better grab because of the character he plays. Like, you're gonna get so much more out of his interpretation of Banky than what I think Ben had to do with Holden. That's my opinion. But I mean,
I wish I could comment, but they haven't gotten back to me, so I don't know if is true or not. But I hope that they decide to be a part of it, because I especially after the TED Talk, where talk about Ben Affleck Film Festival, let's make that shit happen. No, but I think talking to both of them would be really interesting. I also I'd like to talk to the actor who played Hooper as well.
Hooper, yeah.
Yes. Though I don't want to say too much on that yet. Okay. But I am very hopeful to get him involved. Because I do think his perspective is totally necessary for this.
I agree.
And that he'd be an incredible get. So
agree.
We shall see. But
he kind of disappeared. He was like.
So I am in touch with him, and I think, but we haven't properly talked about anything. I wish I could say more right now, but I admire him and I love his work, and I'm really excited to talk to him. So I hope that he'll decide to be a part of our movie, and we shall see. But we're basically almost all the way shot, with the exception of a couple things, which is Jason Lee, Affleck, and the actor who played Hooper. I know he used to go by Dwight Ewell. He has since changed his name. So
I didn't know that.
Yes, that's a whole thing. I don't know. I don't know what I can talk about yet. So anyway,
that's fine.
That's fair. Yeah.
So basically those are the 3 interviews that I need, and then the whole third act of the movie I can't shoot until COVID's over. So we're just editing away with all of this massive amounts of footage that we have, and just seeing where the gaps are right now. So that's where we are in the process. And we're really optimistic about, sales and distribution. We've got a ton of people who have been very kind to us, and we always manage to get funding at the last minute, which is good. So that's about where we're at right now, but there's plenty of time for people to get involved who haven't been involved yet. So, but a release date of 2022, we have a lot of breathing room. We'd like to put animation in there. So we've got room for that, but what we're hoping to get through with COVID, is just to get through the first 2/3 of the movie and see what that looks like and where we're at. And then once COVID's over, we can just drop in all the rest of the shit that we need. But we don't have our third act until the world goes back to normal. And right now, we're stuck towards the end of the second act, where I am mad that I can't make my movie right now. So that's about where things are at with Chasing Amy. But if Jason Lee wanted to be involved, we would be profoundly honored, because the work he does in that movie is really great, even if people don't like his character all the time. I think it's still something that's real and something that happens, that people are closeted and they're homophobic as a result. But for that time, I don't think that was a prevalent trope, Right. Now it's been done to death and people are sick of it. But at the time, I don't recall there being a ton of tropes like that. So, we'll see. We'll see. And we're excited to dig into what people like and don't like about Chasing Amy and share this movie finally with everybody, because we've been working on it for years.
Well, we're not ending the interview yet, but I want to stress and we've made a lot of jokes and had a lot of fun today, but if Rico and I can be any help to you besides just a platform, please don't hesitate to let us know. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So
well, now we're all buddies.
Yeah.
I fucking love podcasts because it's basically just an excuse to talk to people. Like that's what I miss about this. Is like I'm pissed off about COVID because it's killing a ton of people, but on a more personal level, like I'm pissed off that there's a lack of an opportunity to connect with people in the same way. Like people don't want more Zoom calls; they want to be able to hug their friends again. And so I cannot wait until this whole situation is over so that we can all love each other, in person again and stuff. And I anticipate that while we're doing, a variety of things, I'll be able to run into the both of you on this journey in a physical sense, and we can go grab a beer and whatnot. So
we haven't even fucking met each other.
Rico and I we have never.
Whoa!
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What? When did you guys start this? I thought you guys have been doing this for like years.
2 years. 2 years and some change. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I can't say shit. I didn't meet my fiance until 4 months into us dating, so that's about 2 years. That tracks. So, I get it. But, I mean, see, long-distance relationships, they can fucking work out. Don't let people tell you otherwise.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that we've made jokes that we're fucking meet each other when we least expect it. Like we were both invited to the same wedding or some shit. We just didn't know. Oh my God, you knew so-and-so. What the fuck are you doing here?
Right. Yeah.
But the funny thing is because we have that long distance partnership, we have had to do every episode of PodAskew through Skype or Zoom or a variation.
Yeah.
So whenever all these podcasters that had the comfort of being able to do it 4 feet from each other, now they have to do it through Skype and Zoom. They're all scrambled. You're like, motherfucker, we were ahead of the curve.
Right. Yeah.
I love it. I genuinely love this.
And it's also, I don't have them yet because they're in the mail, but I took this, if COVID's going to be what it is and face masks are going to be the thing for the immediate future, which it seems it will be, even if all the other restrictions are lifted. I have PodAskew face masks in the mail coming, so I'm going to have PodAskew right here. So
promote that shit everywhere.
Fuck yeah, man.
Walk around with my face on his lips. That's exactly what I'm getting from that.
Do what you got to do. All kidding aside,
your hetero life mates. I just want to check in again.
Yep. Yeah.
Every time we say that out loud, I'm always second guessing it now.
As you should be. There are no real boundaries, guys.
Well, there is if you're long distance. That's the boundary. But
that's true. I mean, I felt that for 5-6 years. I get it.
Yeah.
The first time I spoke to CJ, I made a joke that one day when we meet, we will cuddle.
Yes, you did.
And I more or less said that just to kind of test, because people think that we were friends and then did this. We didn't know each other. So
we talked once.
You guys,
the second time we talked, we recorded. That's
fascinating.
And we've been doing it since.
I love this. You guys seem like you're old friends.
Well, we became old friends without knowing each other. That's the old. I mean, and he and I do not agree on everything, and our tastes are can be completely different.
Oh, don't fucking do it! I swear to God,
I'm not gonna. I wasn't, but now Sam's gonna be like, you should do it.
I am here for the drama.
Oh,
Let me hear
Christ.
CJ, you did this yourself.
I did this. You're right.
I was not going to bring this up. I was going to talk about, like, you and I like Star Wars and Kevin Smith, and that's kind of it. But now,
and I'm going to let him say what he's going to say, Sav. But like to his point, though, like we like different episodes of Star Wars. For example, like he likes like episodes five more than I do. You know what I mean? Like I like episode 2 more than he does.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's not to say I don't.
I need both of you to give me your Star Wars rankings right now. Don't include TV.
Don't include TV. Okay.
Are we including Solo and Rogue One as well?
Yes.
Oh fuck.
Oh,
all right.
Well, no, wait. I do have a follow-up question. This is a legit question. Are you talking? And this is a debate Rico and I have all the time on this show. Are we talking about
our? It was called Star Wars. So
yeah, I told him that. But it is. Are we giving you our favorites, or what we think is better? Because honestly, I have my favorites, but I recognize that.
Yes, I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about movies where it's like, look, Chasing Amy is not probably going to be up there with Citizen Kane, but that doesn't matter to me because it's my favorite movie. Fuck everybody else, you know? Like
right.
That's so I'm gonna go ahead and go personal taste.
Okay.
Because I feel like my personal taste versus what I recognize as cinematic greatness by more objective standards, quote unquote, are probably different.
Oh shit. Okay.
I feel like I have to write them out.
I kind of have to.
And I'll buy you some time. I'll vamp because I do want to say that as much as I really loved episodes 7 and 8. I really, really genuinely loved those. However, I think as a trilogy, the prequels are far superior as a cohesive story that threads from one movie to the next.
Because he hates The Last Jedi with a passion.
I don't hate The Last Jedi. But I do think episode 9 and how, and this is, I love J.J. Abrams. I love what that trilogy was trying to do, but they didn't stick the landing for me. And it kind of, I can't consider it, a superior trilogy now as a cohesive story because, you take these like trilogies and you do it. So for me, how episode 9 was executed kind of cheapened a lot of the rest of the promises I feel like were built upon in 7 and 8. So, and I recently rewatched the trilogies after seeing Rise of Skywalker twice in theaters, right? And I'm a Star Wars fan. Like any Star Wars movie is better than no Star Wars movie for me,
Agreed.
And I just want to preface that and say that. But I did rewatch the prequels and I was like, man, these get a lot of fucking hate. But at least they were doing something more daring and inventive and they were going to new places and it was exciting in that, regard. And they were filling in gaps of lore that you were like imagining before then. And I'll preface this by saying, look, I'm 25. Like I was a kid when these movies came out. I wasn't around for like the original trilogy by any means, but like, I genuinely feel like the prequels now, with the context of having the sequel trilogy, should be a lot more respected by Star Wars fans. And I think what Dave Filoni was saying about the prequels, there's a like viral video of Dave Filoni talking about the prequels and like what they mean to him. Like, I thought that was an excellent interpretation.
Well, I've got my list.
You go first. I'm looking. I'm pretty much ready, but you go first.
All right.
This is sort of how I spur of the moment swung the list. I may change some things, but overall, this is how I feel. My personal favorite is Return of the Jedi because it was the first one I ever saw. CJ gives me shit for this, but I saw the Star Wars movies, at least the original trilogy, out of order. So. Because I was a kid.
He sees almost everything out of order.
That's not fucking true.
Most of the time you see it out of order.
That's not fucking true.
It is fucking true.
No, look, motherfucker. I'm here to defend my fucking point of view. Okay.
All right.
But I happened to see Return of the Jedi first because I was at someone's house and it was on, so I sat and watched it. There was a lot of problems with that because I was cheated of the revelation that Vader was Luke's father. But on top of that, because Star Wars is such fucking pop culture public knowledge, it was really hard to find anybody who didn't know Vader was Luke's dad to begin with. So I didn't have that what kind of moment. So I love Jedi because it was the first one, but also because I like the fact that Luke has a green lightsaber. I fucking dig it. Green's my favorite color, and I have nothing against blue or red, but green, fuck yeah. So,
all right. I mean, those are your reasons.
Those are my reasons. And years later, after watching it, I find the fight between Luke and Vader on the second Death Star much more of a tragic fight because the Empire fight between the two of them on Bespin is great, but he doesn't know who he's fighting. He just thinks he's fighting a big bad. But in Jedi, he knows he's fighting his father. And that's what makes it so heartbreaking. In the same comparison, Obi-Wan versus Anakin, episode 3, is a really fucking heartbreaking fight. It's brother against brother, it's mentor against student, it's father figure against adopted son, so to speak. And, I mean, Phantom Menace, Duel of the Fates has an amazing fight scene, but let's get these two guys versus this devil-looking motherfucker. That's ultimately what it is. It's
but there's also, that feeling of mentorship between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan that I feel is present. It's that seeing your father figure die. Like, that's impactful, I would say.
Of course, absolutely. But even the music in itself, Battle of the Heroes, the theme for episode 3, is a sadder version of Duel of the Fates. You can hear the same melodies, but it's slower and and more heartbreaking. And John Williams is no, idiot when it comes to his own music. He intentionally was like, this is just a depressing Duel of the Fates. So, do I state automatically that Empire is the best film? Kind of like that's sort of the outspoken consensus. Yes. Which is why I have it at number 2 as opposed to number 1 because my personal favorite is Jedi.
Oh, it's at number 2 on my list, buddy. We're on the same page here.
Okay, so then I have to give it credit to Force Awakens for number 3 because Force Awakens. See, yeah, great minds think alike, motherfucker.
I'm in deep shit.
You are in deep shit.
Hey, I'm respectful of all points of view as long as they're not
yours.
So.
No, you don't have to be respectful of anyone's point of view. You have to acknowledge they have a point of view.
Again, unless you're a fascist, I'm pretty fine usually with what other people think.
Fair enough. So, Force Awakens for me, whether some people can argue it's got fucking faults that, there's the constant outcry that it's a carbon copy of A New Hope. But J.J. Abrams and A Force Awakens gave me what I always wanted, which was to actually give a fuck about Star Wars again. Because after episode 3, we were kind of like, that's it, no more, fuck it, why not? We got what we got, enjoy it while we can. But I was fucking amped up seeing Force Awakens, and I left that theater being like, that was so goddamn good. I'm so happy. Like, I didn't even really have any problems with Disney buying Lucasfilm to begin with. I was like, fuck, dude, they're killing it at Marvel. I'm happy as shit. We're not going to see fucking Mickey going, oh boy, and swinging a lightsaber. I did not know. I didn't think they were going to do that shit. Again, now we're at the point where any of these, for the most part, in the middle of my list can be kind of interchangeable. Rogue One, on a whole, when I first saw it, I kind of thought was a bit of a boring fucking movie. And I always kind of had that standpoint of I don't really need this movie. I don't really need what they're trying to convey. Also, there was kind of this thing of, I kind of knew they're all going to die. So, therefore, the mystery is taken out. It's kind of like when a movie studio gets too overzealous and they tell you there's going to be 2 or 3 movies of this trilogy after, announcing, you're like, well, don't fucking do that because then the mystery's gone. Let us enjoy the ride.
Sure.
Let us anticipate the following sequel.
I feel like there's been an episode of Rico Rants I haven't heard where you talk about just this.
There's been more than a couple. To be
there's
fair,
definitely an episode of PodAskew for sure. I know that. Yeah.
I haven't done any Rico's Rants in a while.
So run through the rest of your list real quick because I want us to all compare our lists.
All right. After Rogue One,
I love how Sav has turned into the host of PodAskew tonight.
I know. I'm so sorry.
Dude, no.
I want to know. I want to know the order and
dude.
The list.
I am totally fucking with you. It's perfectly fine. I'm actually having a great time with it. It's just funny to me. That's all.
Control problems. That's why I'm a director, right? Isn't that what it is?
Go ahead.
We could have an IMDb. We said we were directed by Sav Rodgers. So Rogue One and then A New Hope. I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not as big of a fan as I should.
All right.
And then Rise of Skywalker. And then Episode 3. And then Solo. And then Phantom Menace. And then Last Jedi. And then finally Attack of the Clones.
You know what? I was totally on the fuck Attack of the Clones bandwagon for such a long time because of the I hate sand shit. But let me tell you, when they're fighting on Geonosis, that shit was cool, man. Like, that bumped it up several notches for me, despite hating the storyline between Padme and Anakin for me, because I just didn't feel that chemistry between them. I didn't feel that chemistry. I was like, this is the love story that breaks the fucking universe apart. That was my thought with it. But after rewatching all of them recently, I would say that Battle of Geonosis makes up for a lot for me. I don't know about y'all. But CJ, I want to hear your list now.
I'm still actually compiling, so if
I'll read mine then.
Please.
All right, I'm going to go. So this is the order. New Hope, Empire, Force Awakens, Return of the Jedi, Last Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, Rogue One, Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace, Solo, Rise of Skywalker. And I will say, I don't have any contempt really for any of the movies except the last one. Like, it's just, or in order of like how much like I would rewatch it, pretty much. Like, that's usually my indicator of if I like a movie a lot, is if I'll rewatch it 200 times, a la Chasing Amy, a la I, Tonya, Birds of Prey, Molly's Game, etc.
You really like Birds of Prey that much?
Movies that are my identity now. I loved it. Holy shit.
Okay. I'm not hating on that. That's not a common response to that movie that I hear. That's why I was surprised by it. So
if you look at my Twitter feed, it is a Birds of Prey fan account, and
I don't think we're following each other
for the. Well, let's fucking correct that shit.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's all get linked up after the show.
Yeah.
And then, because I want to be sure that I don't know. I got overwhelmed after the TED Talk came out, and I had a bunch of new followers, and I was like, I don't know any of these people. Let's make friends first, and then we'll become like buddies and shit.
Yeah, no worries.
But Birds of Prey is the shit. In fact, it's my number one Star Wars movie now. That is how much it is.
All right.
I could go on and on. We could have a whole Birds of Prey fucking episode.
Well,
and
you know what,
back for it.
Sav, we haven't. We're gonna do a Suicide Squad Birds of Prey episode because there's basically sequels to one another, and we haven't done it yet. So we'll have you back for it.
Please do. So this is another PodAskew exclusive. I'm actually developing a podcast right now with my good friend Chris Lord, who is, the host of Tim Talk and Gay It Forward, another really great friend that I made through podcasting. We're actually doing a show called The Quixotic History of Harley Quinn. It's basically an audio documentary where we dive into the entire history of that character and her surprising cultural impact. And just the craziness in the fandom surrounding her and her genesis from Joker sidekick to emancipated badass who's running around with the Gotham City sirens and shit. So tons of fun. And we're really excited to do that.
Cool.
Well, if you need someone to do a Mark Hamill Joker impression, I'm your guy.
He
fuck
really
yeah!
does.
Can we hear it?
Oh God, again? Okay.
I'm sorry, you can't just tease me like that and not deliver, my dude.
Well, what would you like me to say? Oh, Holly, I'm so tired of this bullshit.
That's amazing.
I will.
Mine's more Arkham video game.
No. That was spot on and perfect. That was perfect.
I will. I'm going to give you my list because I'm ready, but I will real quickly just touch on, because if you're that much of a fan, and I mean this sincerely, we did a thing we call it a pod play. So it's a la those old school radio plays where you have sound effects and the whole bit, right?
Yeah,
and
that rocks.
A guy we know wrote a Batman script. Now the story is good.
I actually told you all this.
Maybe he did. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the story's got some continuity issues, but that's what it is. And I'm not dogging on him, but that's just a different conversation. However, the woman that our bisexual friend that I told you about earlier played Harley.
Love a bisexual friend.
What?
I said we love a bisexual friend.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying.
That tracks. Harley is bisexual.
Right. She killed that performance. Like, it was ridiculously good. So if you are that much of a Harley fan, you need to go check that out, because she is just amazing in that role. She really did a great job.
I would love that. Please send it to me, because I think Harley's such an interesting character, and really, like, you know, getting to do research for this podcast has been it's been a total blast, because I just get to revisit, you know, so many of the stories that made me like comic books in the first place, you know? So fucking fantastic. I would love to see it.
Yeah, check it out. She's really good.
All right. I'm looking for it now.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear your Star Wars list, though.
So, Star Wars list. So this is
wrong,
ironic.
Wrong. That's what it is.
Basically, yeah. All right, so from top to bottom, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
All right.
I just... See, I didn't have as much of a problem with the dynamic between Padme and Anakin that you mentioned. So
yeah.
I really like that dynamic. Plus, on the flip side, and not related, I loved the Obi-Wan as the detective trying to figure out what the fuck happened and go into his buddy at the diner and that whole sequence. Like, you know,
yeah. That's a great point. I hadn't really considered that before, but I mean, Obi-Wan is the man. I mean, and the way that Ewan expands upon what is not a lot of screen time for Alec Guinness in Episode 4 and a couple of cameos here and there, like, it's amazing, and it feels totally authentic to the character, and he just makes that role his own in the most beautiful way. So I totally love that.
Yeah. Then for me, it's The Force Awakens. I just think it was, to Rico's point, it's so well done, and it made you excited for Star Wars again, and it really did that for me too. It's such a good film. There's a lot of fan homage in it without it being overly over the top, I think.
Right.
And then, you know, of course, you get that punch in the gut towards the end that nobody, well, at least I didn't see coming. You know, I think Rico said you saw it coming, but I didn't.
I want to bet with my brother over it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's what it is. So then Return of the Jedi for me. Of the original trilogy, that's the most fun one for me. I like that one the most of the original trilogy. Rogue One, then The Rise of Skywalker, then Solo, and then you go episodes 5, 4, 3, 8, and then 1.
Okay. I'm surprised with 2 and 1 being so diametrically opposed on your list. That's interesting to me.
Well,
I'll give you. I have a guess of what it could be.
Well, I can tell you, but what is it, Rico?
Jar Jar?
Yeah, it's really just that, and that's not a shot at it, because I know that what's his name? Ahmed Best took a lot of shit for that, and I personally don't blame him. I blame the writing, not him. You know what I mean? So,
like every good Star Wars fan, we blame George Lucas.
Yeah. But he took a lot of shit, and he took a lot of shit, and Jake Lloyd, right? Jake Lloyd?
Jake Lloyd, yeah. Jake Lloyd.
They both took a lot of shit for stuff I don't think was really their fault. So, you know, my problems with that movie is not them. It's the way it was constructed, the way it was put together. And to me, there's a lot of plot holes in that particular one. You know what I mean? So
That's fair. See, I wish all Star Wars debates were this friendly and respectful and, like, not threatening to dox the actors who, like, you know, played these characters as children, you know?
Well, I think the most important thing that's sort of been unsaid about this whole episode is that we've all been bullied.
Yes.
The three of us have all been bullied for very different reasons, but bullying still fucking hurts. So if I can quote Captain America, I don't like bullies. I don't care where the fuck they're from. Well, I'm paraphrasing, but still.
Yeah. Sav Rodgers would never.
Language.
Yeah.
But I felt so bad for Jake Lloyd. And even when, episode 1 came out, I was like, yeah, he's not a great actor. But, that's not really the whole point of Star Wars. I mean, there's a lot of parts of Star Wars where that's not the greatest acting. I mean, I love me some Mark Hamill. I'm a big Mark Hamill fan. But I can never overlook the fucking, but I was going to go to China to get some power. It's like, I'm sorry, Marky, but that is some fucking exquisite ass acting. Or the fact that Carrie Fisher couldn't figure out what fucking accent to use.
I was just about to bring that up.
I mean,
and I love Carrie Fisher, and I would, she's a brilliant writer, brilliant actor. But yeah, that's totally. And Star Wars has never been perfect, ever. And that's kind of the charm of it, is that it's not perfect, and there are plot holes, and did I cut out?
We got you enough. Go ahead. You're fine.
It's sped up.
Damn it. All right.
Disney's fucking with us. They don't like the fact that we're being critical of Star Wars.
Sav, I love where you're going with all this. I really do, because, and I'm going to tell you something that we determined a while ago that I feel like needs to be maybe a different conversation, a different episode, because I think it's an episode length conversation. But we collectively defined the best trilogy that we kind of agreed on as Back to the Future. As a trilogy piece. There's some problems, but as a trilogy, because you were talking about how Star Wars has its problems.
Yeah.
We feel like Back to the Future has far less problems and works the best as a 3-story arc.
That's interesting.
You can sit and watch Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3 and be like, that was a great goddamn movie. No, that was 3 movies. No, that was one fucking movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I get that.
Not many trilogies will do that. And just as a comparison piece, I'm a huge fan of The Matrix. And to me, but to me, it's the whole thing, not just the first movie. Like that whole. To me, The Matrix functions very much like Back to the Future in that it's one gigantic movie. However, it's not nearly as well put together as Back to the Future. I'll sit here here and say that. Back to the Future is probably the best trilogy put together in cinematic history.
Huh. I respect that point of view. I haven't thought about it too much, so I can't, as much as I have an opinion on everything, I can't say I have an opinion yet. I have to think about it, but I love that.
You could just say, whoa, this is heavy.
Yeah. Or you could listen to the episode of the same title, because that's where we talked about it. The other thing that
God damn it, you guys gotta listen to, whoa, this is heavy.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, because, and I'm really curious to hear your feedback on this. Oh, real quick, just on Star Wars, to put a bow on it for me at least. If you were letting us include television, The Mandalorian would be like right near the top for me.
Oh, it'd be number 1.
I think it would still be like 2 or 3 for me, but it's right there. Yeah.
What do you think, Rico?
About The Mandalorian?
Yeah.
I think it would definitely be near the top. I would definitely not say it's number 1. I think it definitely has brought back an interest. But, here's the thing. We were all, at least myself, I was obsessed with Mandalorian as it was coming out. And then I really have not thought of it once I went through the whole series.
Oh, I have.
Really?
I have.
I think about it all the time.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I loved it and I liked it, but I kind of was like, fuck, I really need to rewatch and finish Rebels. That's sort of where my mind was. Like, I really committed to Rebels and I loved Rebels. But I never finished it. So I got Star Wars on the brain, but I like to, let it drop. The ultimate fucking irony is that, and CJ's going to hate me for this, but I was going to out him on something that he loves to fucking, bring up.
And
then we just went on a whole fucking other tangent. So
I didn't do it on.
What is it?
I didn't do it on purpose, and I'll let him do it. And then I do have a question for you, not related to Star Wars. Oh, look at that! Baby Yoda. I fucking love it.
We got Baby Yoda joining us on the broadcast from Kansas.
There you go.
This little dude hangs out in our basement and creeps out any visitors.
Nice. Rico, go ahead. And then, Sav, like I said, I do have a question about something completely different that I think I would love to get your feedback on, and maybe where we wrap up for tonight. We'll see. But go ahead, Rico.
Let's do it.
So a while back, around Halloween,
Mm-hmm.
2018, just to be specific. Yeah.
The new Halloween movie, 2018, the sequel to the original film, came out. And I wanted to discuss it. And CJ will admit that he is not a big horror guy. I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I'm about to go see this new Halloween. You should see the original so we can have a conversation and talk. I'll talk about the new one. You talk about the old one. I'm curious of your thoughts. And I'm a big fan of the original Halloween. And I kept saying, like, this is going to be great. You like John Carpenter. This is going to be a great conversation. We start. He didn't tell me his thoughts beforehand. We got on, and I was like, so what'd you think? And I'm thinking I'm going to get, oh, it was great. And he said, I fucking hated it. It was the worst movie I've ever fucking seen. And so now, most guests, usually whenever we get a new guest.
Anyone who's really into movies like yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
I like to bring it up and I say, so what's your take on Halloween? So we can kind of like a point for CJ, a point for Rico.
Oh.
I will state this. The majority of the people that have sided with CJ, their usual argument is it's just a little dated. It's not scary now. It's just dated. And I'm like, I get it, but that's the 70s. So what? You have to respect the film.
I am about to lose a lot of nerd cred with y'all because I actually haven't seen it. And it's not because I willingly not seen it. I'm just not a huge horror guy because I was a scaredy cat as a kid. Like I saw The Exorcist at 13 and it didn't bother me, but the idea of seeing horror movies has always been much scarier than actually seeing them for me. So but I've actually seen, didn't Rob Zombie do a Halloween movie? I've seen that one and I didn't particularly love it. It's not, I don't think it was
Neither
for
did
me.
Rico, so don't feel bad.
But I always admire filmmakers for, saying what they got to say if they feel passionate about it. If it's something that they clearly didn't give a shit about that other people found value in, that's always fun. But, I never try to rag on filmmakers for trying, but not everything connects for me. But I actually haven't seen Halloween, and I'm a little ashamed to say it because I know John Carpenter is, somebody that I think all filmmakers should be able to learn from. And I've seen other more obscure horror movies, but I haven't seen that, so I feel a little bad.
Just to your point about John Carpenter, I'll take Big Trouble in Little China and both the Escape movies before I take Halloween any day of the week, and so
sure, yeah,
but so it's not that I don't like John Carpenter. I just thought. If he has to absolve Rico, he hasn't seen the thing. He can't.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But by the next time that y'all have me on the show, if you choose to have me back, I will have seen it and will be able to weigh in on this important debate.
You're coming back. There's no question.
Yeah.
Whether it's to promote the release of the movie or before that is what we have to determine. But you're coming back.
Yeah, all right.
So the thing I'm curious about is. Because you talk about, and you've mentioned a few times, and you said it on the TED Talk about the Ben Affleck movie marathon that you had at your house, and it all started with Daredevil. So there's a couple questions I have about that, and they're all positive. So believe me, I'm not, because I know a lot of people love to shit on that movie, and that's not what I'm gonna do. So
sure, I still love it. I love that movie. I think he's an excellent Matt Murdock, and the issues with the movie are not his fault, and ultimately the director's cut absolves a lot of plot issues.
Well, that's what I was just about to say, because I'm not a fan of the theatrical release, but I love the director's cut. It's way darker, it's way closer to the book, and it's closer to what I know of the character. Now, that said, until Netflix.
Sure.
Because that version of Daredevil is...
I love it.
Oh, it's so good. And so that's what I wanted. I wanted to get your thoughts on... You kind of mentioned all of it already, but if you want to deep dive a little, the theatrical versus the directors on the Affleck movie, and then in addition, how it now compares to the version of Matt Murdock that we have with Charlie Cox,
Okay, so I will preface this by saying that X-Men comics that my uncle sent to me when I was like a kid, seeing the Daredevil movie at 8 years old, and eventually, after falling out of love with comics for a bit, is seeing the New 52 Harley that Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner put together. Those are like my basis for loving comics. So X-Men, Daredevil, and Harley. Those are like the three big properties for me. So I've got a shit ton of Daredevil in like the crawl space over here that just is like, they're all like organized by like year and shit. Like I love Daredevil. I cannot say it enough. So when I saw the movie originally, though, it was one of my first exposures to superhero movies. Like Spider-Man had come out. And then X-Men I'd seen, but Daredevil and X2 were like the two movies that I was like, holy shit, comic book movies. These are everything to me now. This is my identity.
You and everybody else, buddy.
Pretty much. And I still love the Daredevil movie, and I can't comment on its cinematic value, but I can comment on, what it did for me. And it was exciting. It was exciting to see like, a blind superhero. That blew my fucking 8-year-old brain off. I was just like, what the fuck is this? That's crazy. He can see through sound. He's like a bat. This is amazing.
I love that compare. There was a meme where they said like it was Daredevil and Batman meeting. They're like, wait a minute. How come we're not swapping roles? Like I'm as blind as a bat. Shouldn't I be Batman? And you're like a Daredevil. You're a man without fear. You enlist fear. Shouldn't we fucking be like the other? So.
That's funny. I love that. I mean, and it's totally true. So yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I lost track of your original question. Do you wanted my thoughts on the director version?
Well, just the cinematic versus the director, and your thoughts about because there are, for anyone who's watched both, there's a pretty distinct difference between the two films, even though the plot's identical.
Yeah, one's great, the other one's fine.
Yeah, I just I had only seen the theatrical version for like the longest time, and that was the version I liked. And then I saw the director's version. I was like, wow, this like includes way more of like Matt Murdock's characterization, a lot of the conflict. It doesn't make it so easy for Matt and Elektra to get together because, I mean, at the core of their relationship, it's always doomed. Right. There's virtually no timeline in any of the comics where it works out for those two because they're both motivated by completely different things, and they often let their vigilantism get in the way of what could be a relationship. And I thought that the director's cut really touched on that better because like in the theatrical version, they kiss in the rain and then they have sex, and then she invites him to this like big ball that her like father's a guest of honor at, right? And in the theatrical version, like, she leaves him in the rain, or he leaves her to go fight crime. I think that's what it is.
In the director's cut, you mean?
Yeah, in the director's cut, he leaves her to go fight crime. He leaves her standing there. He leaves her high and dry. Right. And, like, that is ultimately, like, what dooms their relationship for the most part, is that they can't, they can't ever get in sync with what they want or how they communicate or anything like that. And so I thought that was really true to it. And then the Netflix series just takes it to a whole other fucking level and elevates the shit out of it. I mean, it really takes what's on the page and makes it palatable for a dramatic audience. Mm-hmm. I will say, out of those Netflix shows, season 1 of Jessica Jones is my favorite.
Oh, so good. So good.
So good. I couldn't deal, though, with where the direction they went, specifically as it pertained to Trish. Right. Because in season 1, they sell you on this relationship between these two. Whether you think it's sapphic or you think it's like a sisterhood, the relationship between Trish and Jessica is what really sells that show. That's what's really there. Like, you have David Tennant as Purple Man, and it's compelling, and there's action, and it's such an accurate portrayal of trauma and how to deal with it and what happens when you can't deal with it anymore. But the direction that they take Trish in, I thought was kind of unconscionable, where I was like, what are you doing? Like, I understand you're trying to breed conflict between these two, but this is not what anybody signed up for, in my opinion.
But And the thing is like Jessica Jones has enough fucking conflict where you can use many other examples. You don't have to use Trish. Jessica Jones even if you took away her powers, she's a PI. She's already got to have a fucked up life,
right?
So why make everybody a fucking antagonist was really a disservice to the show.
Yeah, and I know that like Trish is a character that they took a lot of liberties with anyway, but I love the direction they took her in season 1 where there was a little bit of power envy, and that seed I really appreciated. And I love that they ended up making her Hellcat for, whatever, you want to call it.
Briefly,
I don't know. But I think that the appeal of it was that bond, and I was disappointed by how off track that they got with that. It was really disappointing to me. Even though I did like the majority of season 2. I just wish that true spirit in season 1 would have been the heart of the show as it progressed and as they evolved it. But with Daredevil, I mean, I fucking love that show. I just loved it.
I loved 99% of Jessica Jones. It is another, like we talked about Black Klansman earlier. It's another show that's hard to kind of watch. It's not one you could binge. You got to take some breaks with that one.
Oh, I binged the shit out of it.
So did I.
I watched it again, and again because I was like,
I had to because a lot of my love life, I have unfortunately dated girls that have been victims of sexual assault, and I was always the ear to listen and the shoulder to cry on. So it wasn't just, I know someone who was raped. It's like, I knew way too many fucking people that were raped.
Yeah.
So watching Jessica Jones, my friend wanted to keep binging. I'm like, I need to take a break. I need to.
That is totally understandable. And I know plenty of people who feel the same way, whether they were victims of sexual assault or they had loved ones who were dealing with the same thing. So that's totally understandable.
Right. In the same way, watching Black Klansman, I was like, I got to take a break because I've got Jewish nephews and they're young. They're under, 5 years old. I have no fucking clue what the world's going to be like when they're going to kind of get smacked with the reality that not all people like Jewish people. That's what I was afraid of. Because as much as I love the show and I love David Tennant, even though he's a despicable fucking person, the character, I mean.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, man, they really kind of shot themselves in the foot by, spoiler, for those who haven't seen it, she just snaps his fucking neck. If I was writing that episode, I would have had her rip out his tongue and make him unable to speak, therefore he can't control anybody.
Oh.
But he's still aware. So he loses his power, but he's forced to have to quote unquote live normally and be in prison.
Wow.
That's what I would have done. So watching that, I'm like,
I love that. That's a great idea.
Plus you get to have David Tennant come back. But,
Yeah. I mean, that was always going to be the issue, I guess, is like he's such an enigmatic figure, even though he's despicable. But you can't help. It's kind of like I love the movie I, Tonya, and that the way that Sebastian Stan portrays Jeff Gillooly, like the audience forgives him so many times watching that movie, though, like as despicable as he is. But at the same moment, you're like, oh, like he brought her ice cream. And then the next scene, he hits her again. It's a lot like that, where it's like the actor playing them is so charismatic and charming, and you have these preconceived notions about that actor going into the movies a lot of the time, or the TV show in this instance, and it totally assists with the character being able to get away with so much with the audience time and time again that you can't blame the protagonist, even if, for example, in I, Tonya, when she goes back to him, you don't blame Tonya. I don't think the audience ever blames Tonya for the most part, for going back to Jeff. And I don't think that the audience ever blames Jessica Jones for having to reluctantly team up with him in certain parts of that series, despite how awful he is. You know what I mean? Anyway, they often playing actors, publicity and the ideas around them against the audience for their benefit, I always think is smart.
I've noticed something, Seth, throughout this entire conversation tonight, when we've gotten in, especially when we've gotten into movies,
Mm-hmm.
and believe me, it's just an observation, but it's meant positively regardless. You seem to love strong female characters. Like, that seems to be something you seem to gravitate towards. I don't know if you do it consciously, but whether they're good, quote unquote, or bad, quote unquote, because I mean, Harley is definitely more of a villain than a hero, but I mean, but you seem to gravitate towards a lot of strong female, and that's not to say you don't like male characters. Like, I'm not putting a line there.
First of all, it's never a bad thing for people to point out that I love movies and TV shows with women at the center. I typically find them to be more interesting than the typical fanfare because we haven't had the opportunity to, I guess, see as many movies with that, comparatively speaking. Like, I love Martin Scorsese's movies, but he doesn't make those movies for me. I think The Aviator it's one of my favorite movies.
I love that movie.
But I don't rewatch that over and over again because I don't get the same thing out of it that I get by watching Molly's Game over and over again.
Sure.
I
need to see that.
I don't know what it is. Oh, it's so good.
I need to see that. Yeah.
It's Sorkin at its best, man. It's so fucking
and
good.
I like
Jessica
Sorkin.
Chastain.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I don't know. I mean, I've never really identified as a girl, clearly. I've taken extreme measures to not be seen as that.
Spoiler, Sav. Come on.
But I do typically find movies with women at the center to be more interesting. And one of the things that really draws me in about Birds of Prey is the same thing that draws me in with Jessica Jones. I have never seen a movie that portrays why people fear men the way that Birds of Prey does. It puts a palatable tension in the air because of that Roman Sionis character. Okay, like what they're able to do in Birds of Prey with Roman being, again, enigmatic, sometimes the fun guy, good looking, interesting, funny, and then he snaps in a second and he is the scariest motherfucker you've ever seen. That is what it's like to navigate the world when you do not possess power, and you're at the mercy of other people for the most part. So the way that it portrays misogyny in that movie, it finally puts a visual to the feeling that so many women, trans people, have when dealing with specifically cisgender men, and the power that they retain and how fucking scary they can be. Like, that's something that is wonderful about that movie, while still being this kind of like fun acid trip all through Harley Quinn's perspective. So like, typically the movies that I find super interesting have women at the center because they tend to have those really interesting depths about them. Again, Molly's Game is a movie where you've got Molly Bloom who gets into this, high stakes poker world. And time again, men take away her opportunities, whether it's men in the government, the people.
Maguire.
Yeah, exactly. It's just interesting to see how people persevere despite their circumstances. And I guess a lot of my favorite movies can boil down to that. So I'm dying to see some movies where trans people get that opportunity to play that interesting. But, I feel like a lot of these movies that I love have women because that, the circumstances in which they're overcoming adversity are more interesting to me than, a gangster film or something like that. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. And it wasn't meant just so I can clarify
not offended whatsoever because it's all good.
Good.
I have an interesting observation. I just realized, as much as we can shit on Jared Leto's Joker, I think he's probably the most supportive of Harley Quinn that we've ever seen in terms of the other Jokers. To be fair, we've never seen a Joker Harley Quinn team up because it hasn't existed, with the exception of
the animated
series. The Harley Quinn DCU show because they just did that and it was really fucking good.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And that's all on my list. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it. But in terms of the Joker characterization that we have had, Cesar Romero, Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger, Joaquin, and Jared Leto, I could see every single one of those Jokers, apart from Jared Leto, being the sort of pseudo Mark Hamill Joker of kind of shoving Harley on the ground and yelling at her and being an abusive boyfriend. Even if he's at the same time being the abusive boyfriend and being like, oh, I love you, and then smacking her in the face, doing that abusive bullshit. Ironically enough, Jared Leto's Joker, he spends the majority of the movie trying to find her. At least the version we saw. I have no fucking clue what David Ayer's cut is.
Right.
He could be a mixture of abusive and loving, which, is abuse in its own way.
Right.
But I find it absolutely ironic that we shit all over Jared Leto's Joker, which we all love Jared Leto as an actor, but his Joker was kind of trash. But that wasn't necessarily his fault. It was David Ayer. It was him. It was the writing. It was yada, yada, yada. It was the fact that we never got to see that character develop. And then eventually was completely eclipsed by Joaquin Phoenix's. I find it absolutely hysterical that the most supportive Joker ended up being the Joker that breaks up with Harley for her to have her own quote unquote spin-off, her own story. Because I didn't get that impression of why the fuck would they break up in the first place. And I don't have any real deep meaning of it. It was just an observation that sort of clicked for me as we were discussing this.
So I can't comment on Suicide Squad right now because I have not seen it all the way through. I quit after about 20 minutes.
As long as you make it through the first 2 acts, you're fine. The third act you can skip.
Honestly,
the first 20 minutes is the best part, to be perfectly honest.
So yeah. I'm excited to see if David Ayer can get his cut out. I'm really interested to see it, and I am going to watch it for a multitude of reasons. But at the time that it came out, I was like, this is 20 minutes, like Harley, having Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn should be a slam dunk. I'm out. I was like, I'm not going to spend my time watching this right now. However, it's on HBO. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it for the Harley podcast we're doing. But also, out of respect to the performances in that movie, I love movies. I love watching movies, even if they don't always work for me. So, I will eventually watch it. I can't really comment on it. Yes, and Halloween, but I can't comment too much on it. And I'm not here to rag on anybody or anything like that. I'd be curious what would it look like if David Ayer's vision was realized. But from the 20 minutes I saw, I was like, this is discombobulated. I don't understand what they're trying to do here. This is frustrating for me. I'm going to turn it off. However, I'd be curious to see David Ayer's version, though I'm generally not enthusiastic about Harley Joker pairings in general. I think it's kind of boring. They've had 30 years to mess with these characters, pretty much 20, 30 years. And I find the more interesting versions of Harley are when she is broken up from the Joker, and freed herself in that way. And I'm excited for what the DCU animated show is doing with Harley. It's some of the best shit I've ever seen with that character.
And for the most part, I would agree. But since you're such a massive fan of Birds of Prey, I would recommend seeing the Suicide Squad because that's the Joker that she broke up with. And you're right, it is discombobulating because it kind of doesn't really make fucking sense. Although you can argue that every Joker is nuts. Even if he's supportive, he could turn on a dime. I mean, Mark Hamill.
Well, and it's what makes Roman Sionis so scary, and why I thought he was a more satisfying villain in general than typically when I see Joker movies. Because I'm like, okay, yes, he loves Batman. Yes, he's chaotic. He loves anarchy. He's gonna fuck shit up. But I never see the positives of Joker really. And to see that portrayed with Roman in Birds of Prey, I thought really worked for me because he checked all the boxes for somebody that you'd probably want to go to a party with, except for the fact that he cuts people's fucking faces off and is scary at any slight inconvenience to him.
I have a question. You've seen Birds of Prey more than me, but Roman kind of was like, okay, I'm going to take over Gotham. And Harley breaks up with the Joker, so that means I can have free reign to kill Harley. But there's still other gangs in Gotham. There's Penguin. There's Two-Face. There's Joker. Just because Joker broke up with Harley doesn't mean Joker's not still a threat. So I was kind of confused of how
Yeah, I have to agree
how
with that.
Roman was like, "Great, now's my shot." Like, no, you still have other motherfuckers to go up against. You've got Harley. Theoretically, you can take care of Harley, but if Joker doesn't give a shit, so what leverage do you think you have?
What are you confused about? I'm trying to understand.
Well, because
Roman,
you want me to? No, I was going to try to help you out, Rico. That's all.
Yeah, go ahead.
His point is that in the bigger picture of Gotham City, right? Forget that movie. Just the overall picture of Gotham City. Gotham City is generally broken into sections, and they're run by different gangs. So Penguin's got his gang, Two-Face's got his gang, the Joker's got his gang, and Roman has his gang. And Rico's point is that, and I have to agree with him, I think here, is that Roman gets super excited in the movie that now that the Joker and Harley have broken up, that he can take over Gotham.
No, that's not what it is. No, what it is that he can finally take out Harley, who's been a pain in his ass while she was untouchable because she was dating the Joker. What he wants in that movie is to get the diamond back that Cassandra Cain swallows. And Harley is the person standing in his way, and so is this girl gang. But with all that money that he's going to get from the Bertinelli diamonds, that is what's going to help him take over Gotham because he'll have more money and thus more resources. So he can probably try to take on the Penguin, the Joker, Two-Face, etc.
Okay.
That is what's happening. Harley is a nuisance that at every opportunity is fucking with him, whether she's saying she's voting for Bernie or she she changed the channel on the TV, that whole section where, she goes through her laundry list of things that have offended Roman. Yeah. Like, that is why he's so obsessed with her, is that she's been a pain in his ass, like, breaking his driver's legs, etc. But no, I mean, the whole point, the whole thing that he's chasing is the Bertinelli diamond that Cassandra Cain now has. And he wants that money.
Yeah. Almost sad. Now that you're right. Now that I'm thinking back on it. Yeah.
Well, it took someone to watch it 200 times opposed to fucking twice,
Right.
Well, I got that the first time. I mean, I don't know. Well, but I did see it 4 times in theaters, and now I've seen it multiple times at home.
Well, as we established earlier, thank you for correcting me. I do appreciate it.
This is trans rights right here.
There you go.
But there's the other element as well, and I'm not trying to make it a big thing, but I kind of maybe am looking too far into it.
Sure.
I kind of got the impression that Ewan McGregor's interpretation of Roman, because his interpretation of Roman is different than other Romans I've seen.
Sure.
Is probably closeted gay.
Yeah, I think the implication was that he and Victor Zsasz were in some kind of sexual relationship. I don't know if he was bisexual or gay. The text isn't really super clear on that, like from the movie. Right. However, he is definitely coded as queer. I mean, he, for a multitude of reasons. But the great thing about Birds of Prey, in my opinion, is that it's not just one bad gay guy. Like Renee Montoya is a lesbian. Mm-hmm. Harley is confirmed bisexual in that movie.
True.
And I think there's a lot more, stuff going on probably underneath the surface of some of that too. I would code Helena Bertinelli as gay for sure, in that, definitely comes off with butch lesbian vibes in my opinion. But
I can see that.
I think it's a wonderfully just queer movie all around. But what's great is that, you've got the protagonist is confirmed queer in the opening credits, which opens the door then to Gotham City Sirens, with Poison Ivy and Catwoman. And this is what I'm really excited about. I would love it if I could ever get to the point where I could direct a Harley Ivy rom-com that's like fucked up with like action, like in the same vein as Birds of Prey, but it's just a rom-com between Harley and Poison Ivy with action like in the background, because I think that's totally like in the true spirit of those characters.
So you want like Shaun the Dead, like kind of way of looking at, like, not a zombie apocalypse movie.
But that like, feeling of it. So Shaun of the Dead meets Birds of Prey with gay, gay vibes between Harley and Ivy. Like, that is my dream movie to direct if I ever was that privileged, which I probably won't be, but that would be my dream to be able to make that movie.
I want to just add real quick, because you've talked about there's this implied thing between Roman and Zsasz, and I agree. I don't disagree with that in any capacity. But just to add like a an interesting fact, in Gotham, the show, Zsasz is openly gay. In that show.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
I don't know that much about Victor Zsasz. I feel like with comic book knowledge, it's like there's always more to learn, and I'm always open to being corrected on stuff. So I didn't know that. Thank you.
No, we're the same way, and I don't know that he's that way in the book, but I know that in the show, specifically in Gotham, he's coded that way. So
amazing.
But since we are wrapping up, I did want to ask you this because they haven't officially cast Ivy.
No, they haven't.
So, but they have cast Catwoman with.
Well, I don't think that's the same universe. Not to be like, well, actually, but they have Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman in the Robert Pattinson movie, which I think is going to be separate.
I think so,
from
Rico.
the DCEU movies. However, if they had her as Catwoman, I don't think anybody would be upset. She fucking rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Just the fact that, hey, Catwoman is Aquaman's stepdaughter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's
so we already have Harley as we already have Margot Robbie as Harley, and now we have what's her name?
Zoe Kravitz?
No. We have what's her name?
Smollett Bell. Oh, Elizabeth Winstead.
Thank you. I was trying to fucking start the first name. I knew the last name, but I was trying to fucking start.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead. That's her name. Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Thank you. So, who would you cast as Catwoman?
Okay.
And Poison Ivy.
Ooh, that's so hard. Honestly, like everybody expects me to say Jessica Chastain for Ivy, which I think would be a great fit. A lot of people really want Ana de Armas as Ivy, which I also would think would be great. So I'm open to either of those two. And for Catwoman, I don't know. I mean, if we could have Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman in Gotham City Sirens, that'd be rad.
You don't think Halle Berry deserves another shot?
I don't think Halle Berry wants anything to fucking do with being Catwoman.
I and maybe this is a bigger debate for a different day, and Rico, you and I have talked about this a little bit. I loved Anne Hathaway's portrayal of the character. I really did. That movie as a whole has a whole lot of fucking problems, but Anne Hathaway as Catwoman was not one of them, in my opinion.
And people were like shitting on her on the internet beforehand too. They were like, "Oh, Anne Hathaway is Catwoman." And it's like, you just did this with Heath Ledger as the Joker. Can you just like watch the movie first, please?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Fans, and I say we as in the fucking fans, we do that with fucking everything. We reacted that way with Jared Leto as the Joker. We reacted that way with the concept of a Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix being made in the first place. I was not on board with Joaquin Phoenix's movie being made. I loved his performance, and I'm
still not on board with that movie being made.
He hasn't seen it.
I refuse. I won't ever watch it.
I mean, I saw it. It wasn't my thing. I understand why people liked it. I feel like a lot of people took bad messages away from it, which was weird. I was just like, why? Why is this your opinion on it? But also, I respect people's right to have opinions, and it's none of my fucking business people's personal relationship with movies. But it didn't vibe for me. It's kind of everything that I dislike about Joker fandom a little bit. Like, it just personified to like an extreme level. Because I feel like people like identify with the Joker so much, and I'm like, that he's like the bad guy, right? You know that he's like a serial killer, mass murderer, abusive towards his girlfriend. Like, I understand that there are societal issues here, but I don't know. It wasn't for me, but it was clearly for a lot of people.
Well, Sav, I gotta thank you for coming on, man. It's been such a blast having you on. I have so many more things I want to ask you about, and what I'm really happy to say, and I hope you don't take offense to this or misinterpret my way of saying this. None of them have anything to do with the trans community or the LGBTQ community. Not that that's not important, and not that we shouldn't talk about it more, but it's been so much fun just talking to you about stuff that we geek out about every week that I have so many more of those things I want to ask you about, going forward. So I'm certain if the other topics come up again, then we'll certainly get into them as well, because I have zero issue talking about them. But what I also don't want you to be is our trans friend that we come to whenever we have that topic to talk about, so. And
I'm really glad you said that, because I feel like, trans people and queer people, they're so much more than what their genitals look like.
Token friend,
Yeah, we're so much more about our genitalia or who we're fucking. We're so much more than that. We're people with rich inner lives, I like to think, for the most part, and that's what I want my movies to be, is more of a reflection of, how interesting our community is. And I'm sorry if you can hear my pugs running around. They're fighting each other.
No problem.
They're very slow fighting each other, but they are doing it nonetheless. But genuinely, queer people, trans people were more interesting than those labels, and I appreciate, getting asked more about my opinions about Harley Quinn and why I like her so much, rather than inappropriate questions that I tend to get from sometimes my grandparents. So
I can't lie and say that we're never going to have questions again or subjects in relation to that we will want your perspective on. But
that's fine.
But it's not going to be the only reason we reach out, and that's what I need to stress. So
well, of course, and I thank you for that, and I love being able to, it's a twofold thing. I love having a platform to talk about trans people and trans issues, and the liberties that we are owed and deserve. But I also love just getting to shoot the shit and talk about our Star Wars rankings and Harley Quinn and whether or not we think the Joker was a good movie. I love that.
Well, Rico, did you want to say anything before we say goodnight to Sav, or did I cover it all for you?
I think you could take that. I think we're good. Thank you, Sav, for coming, and let's get this. We had a good time. Let's get it over with.
CJ here with a few thank yous and let you know how you can get in touch with and follow the show and us. Listen to us on the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you find your podcasts. Please don't forget to rate and comment. PodAskew is a member of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Visit their website, bigheadsmedia.com, and follow them on Twitter at BigHeadsMedia. If you want to agree with or yell at us, follow Rico, me, and the show on Twitter. The show is at PodAskew, Rico is at RantsRico, and I'm at M_Blade. We want to thank logo designer and show friend Mike for his work on our wonderful logo. You can contact him for artwork via email at logomike80@gmail.com. That's logomike80@gmail.com. Thank you to Samuel Lemons for all original music on the show, especially our theme music. You can find Sam on Twitter at Samuel Lemons, all one word, and his music on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/Samuel-Lemons. Finally, our biggest thank you is to you, everyone, for listening. Rico and I really appreciate your time and look forward to bringing you another episode soon.
Why are you playing the pronoun game?
What? What are you talking about? I'm not even.
You are. I met someone. We have a great time. They're from my hometown. Doesn't this tube of wonderful have a name?
Holden.
Well, here's to the both of you. Another one bites the dust.
Damn it! PodAskew. 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 PodAskew.